The president finds himself backed into corners as the Middle East remains explosive. The Russians continue their march back toward arrogance, and his own party makes some jaw-dropping comments about the border. Whither goest the president now? He is the man few in the Republican Party want to see or hear from, yet Todd Akin continues to be one of the exceptionally bad nightmares that haunt their rise to power. And an overlooked segment of the Afghan war, hunger strike, detainees in prison. Buckle up as the fastest 3 hours in news begins, and we question everything for Thursday, July 17, 2014. Also this hour, we have proof of the most honest, most caring, and most well-informed politician in America today. The one man we can all trust to tell us nothing but the truth every single time. That's my commentary and telling it like it is. To begin, John Bachman tells it like it is with this edition of Newsmax Now.
Thanks, Ed. We're keeping a close eye on these new reports coming in that a Malaysia Airlines plane carrying nearly 300 people has crashed along the Russian-Ukrainian border. The Newsmax.com website now reporting that the plane was in fact shot down. Some reports also say it was a ground-to-air missile that brought the plane down. Of course, we'll keep you updated on new details as soon as we have them. Turning our attention now to the U.S.-Mexico border, the crisis continues to spiral out of control. And according to the latest Gallup poll, immigration is now the most important problem facing America, according to poll respondents. Nearly 17% of the people surveyed say the influx of aliens crossing into the U.S. is their top concern. That number has tripled in the last month. Nearly 60,000 undocumented people, mostly children and teens from Central America, have crossed the southern border in the last 9 months. Now, earlier today here on Newsmax TV, Arizona Congressman Paul Gosar spoke with us about the president's plan, the $3.7 billion plan to solve the problem.
The amount that the president's asking for is, in my terms, dead on arrival. I mean, there's almost $700 million that is placed in here about wildfire. What does that have to do with immigration? He's just wanting to throw money at this problem, and it seems like that's the problem that this president has over and over again.
Well, Congressman Gosar says that he supports sending the National Guard to the border, and he thinks the president needs to simply start enforcing our current laws. Now, to Nevada, where the Clark County Sheriff there near Las Vegas says the department will no longer hold illegal immigrants. The sheriff says the decision has nothing to do with the department taking a stand on the immigration issue, but rather, he says, it's just the best thing to do for that particular agency. Police departments in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Philadelphia have done the same thing. The sheriff says if ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, wants to keep his department or help his department hold illegal immigrants, he's going to need a warrant from the federal government. Meantime, scientists are working to develop a biological pacemaker that researchers say will replace the electronic versions currently being used. Each year, some 300,000 Americans receive an electronic pacemaker, which requires new batteries from every 5 to 8 years. The goal is to advance medical technology to the point where the new biological pacemaker will not require repeat surgeries. The new bio-pacemaker will be inserted by delivering an injection into the patient's heart. More news ahead in 30 minutes. I'm John Bachman. Now over to Ed Berliner.
This isn't about partisan politics. I agree with the president. We will treat them humanely while they're here, and then we should expeditiously return them to their country of origin. So again, it's not about politics. Talk to governors of both parties. Governor Hickenlooper of Colorado, Democrat, he's expressing the same concerns I am.
President Obama may be trying to dodge what's happening on the southwestern border, but events overseas have left him no place to hide in dealing with Russia and the Middle East. Elizabeth Warren leaves no indication she'll run for president, but that won't stop the rumble mill from moving forward. And governors are now standing up to the administration over the flood of illegals coming into the country and their states. We have that and so much more. Veteran political commentator Dick Morris joins us today. Dick, always a pleasure to see you, my friend. Welcome aboard.
Good to see you, Ed. How are you doing?
Excellent. And here comes a Gallup poll that is not going to be seen as excellent for the president right now. Immigration now virtually ties dissatisfaction with the government at 16%. The primary issue Americans think of when asked to name the country's top problem. We should point out that it has now gone overall to 17% this month, up from 5% in June. And the governors are talking back to the president right now. Not what they want to hear.
Well, I think it's important for us to understand that the immigrant children have no constitutional rights, none. The Constitution explicitly gives Congress total control over immigration and naturalization. The rights that they have to a hearing or to an attorney are all derived by statute, and what was created by statute can be repealed by statute. So I think that now you have three distinct camps emerging on Capitol Hill. The Republicans, like me, who say catch them and ship them right back. Literally, don't ingest them at all. Don't have immigration courts, don't have judges, just go from apprehension to airplane on the tarmac, maybe with a night over in between with a decent meal. Then you have the administration, which is saying, well, let's ingest them. Let's take them into the immigration process. Maybe let's give them lawyers, but let's have more judges and speed it up so it goes faster. And then you have the Democrats who say, we don't want them to be thrown out at all. We want them to stay here. And we want to welcome them, treat them humanely. We might, if the normal course of events leads to a deportation order and they happen to get deported, okay. But we're not unhappy with only 2 or 3% being sent back. Now, this fissure between the Democrats and the president really is leaving the Democratic senators who are up for re-election out there with no cover. They're out there vulnerable because when Obama's sending up this funding bill, the Republicans are going to say, we'll give you the money, a little less, but we won't give it to you unless you repeal the statutory protections these kids have so that we can send them right back. And at that point, the Senate Democrats will say, no, we don't want to send them right back. And that could wipe them out in the midterm elections.
The question now, and I bring this up as far as governors are concerned, because there are now more governors who are saying, do not send the children to our state. Dick, in your opinion, how effective will these words from the governors be in going up the chain here and forcing some kind of change or forcing the president to do something?
Well, I think he's probably going to favor blue states with the immigrants, where the governors aren't so objecting. I don't think the governors will legally be able to stop it. But I do think the feeling in the country of these children being assimilated into the heartland of the U.S. and being placed there all over the country really is going to kindle outrage. The interesting thing about this story, it is not only so much the idea of them coming in and their ultimate fate. It's that it's a gift that keeps on giving. Every time there's a murder, and there just was a horrible one by a Honduran illegal immigrant. There was a rape in Philadelphia the other day. This resort that they're putting people in that, has a swimming pool and a tennis court. There was testimony yesterday in Congress. The feds say it costs up to $1,000 a night to accommodate these kids per kid. All of those stories will have legs and ultimately will come to dominate the debate. This is in its own way a little bit like health care reform, a gift that keeps on giving.
Dick, why haven't people focused on the fact that here in America we have kids who don't eat every day, who don't get 3 meals a day? They don't have roofs over their head. There are people who need help here from the government themselves, and we are talking about helping kids who are coming in from another country. It would seem that that would be a good place to start. Help our people first before we are helping others.
Well, I think that's a point, and I think that the reciprocal of that is there's nothing about northern Guatemala that has the north side of Chicago beat. The crime rate, the murder rate, the death rate isn't all that different. So let's protect our own kids in our own neighborhoods first. The myth that there's such violence in Guatemala and El Salvador and Honduras that they all have to leave is really a myth. I've done a bunch of campaigns in Guatemala and in El Salvador and in Honduras, and those countries right now are safer than they've normally been. There's no civil war going on. There was for 30 or 40 years. There are no death squads. There are no guerrilla bands invading villages. The idea that these kids are fleeing violence is really irrational. The other thing is the UN is very close to moving in here and saying these aren't immigrants, these are refugees. And they're not seeking legal status, they're seeking asylum. And under international law, United States, you're obliged to give it to them, whatever you say.
All right, let's move on now and pivot to Elizabeth Warren here. You mentioned the word myth a moment ago. There are those people who say it's all a myth that Elizabeth Warren actually wants to become president. It certainly seems to some people that even though she says it, there's still going to be that groundswell here, and Hillary Clinton could indeed have a problem.
Well, you know, is it a myth that her PAC has raised $1 million and is giving out money to like-minded Democrats around the country? There's a draft Warren committee that was set up, Ready for Warren, they call it. She's doing a book tour. We all know about Obama's and Hillary's book tours and what ends up at the end of them. I think it's very likely that Warren will run, especially given Ed Klein's indication in his new book, Blood Feud, that Obama, Michelle Obama, and Barack and Valerie Jarrett are urging her to run and promising financial and organizational support.
In an article that you wrote recently, you talked about the mistake that Hillary Clinton made in 2008 that she is repeating right now. What is that?
She is fighting the next election before she wins the first one. In 2008, she just assumed she'd get the nomination. So she took conservative positions on the war in Iraq, on the Patriot Act. She sat on the Armed Services Committee. And then Obama challenged her as a hawk, and the Democrats bolted and abandoned her and supported Obama. Now she's taking a hard line on returning the children in Central America. She criticizes Obama as a president who paints a beautiful vision but can't follow through. Those are her words. She talks about how we needed a harder line in the Middle East and to arm the insurgents in Syria. Those are all positions to distancing herself from the president that makes sense in the November election when you have a guy with 40% popularity on your tail. But in a primary election where it's 80% popularity, that's nuts.
All right, I got about 2 minutes left here. The president had to come out and make a couple of forceful statements, at least to him and to others. It was very forceful regarding foreign policy here. His sanctions against Russia, going after the oil and banking core. He's actually going after a lot of Putin's buddies here in the gas issue as well, and in the gas companies as well. In your opinion, was this enough teeth? Did he do what he had to do at this time?
No, it's ridiculous. He added maybe a dozen more people to the list of people that couldn't come to the U.S. for cancer operations or something, or as tourists. What is needed is, number one, put the missiles in Poland and in the Czech Republic like we were planning to. Number two, increase dramatically our exports of natural gas to Europe. And number three, go with the Keystone Pipeline so that we have the natural gas to export to undercut the Russian monopoly. Those steps would have teeth, but nothing he's doing now has any teeth. And now it appears, with that horrible news item that John Bachman spoke about, that maybe a civilian airliner was mistaken for a military aircraft and downed by Russian separatists. That would be a big deal if that's true.
Yeah, we're following that story right now. It was flight MH17, which left Amsterdam at 12:14, due to arrive in Kuala Lumpur at 6:09 local time. There's footage already of a plane that is on the ground, of a large pall of smoke in a field in the area, and they're following this story right now. There still is not a whole lot of
This is
confirmation.
like the Korean.
Yes, it is.
This is like the Korean passenger liner that was shot down by the old Soviet Union.
Yes, it is. 295 people on board at the time, and they all apparently have perished at this time. Dick, I appreciate your time very much. As always, we'll look forward to talking to you again next week.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Dick Morris joining us right here on MidPoint every single week. Again, to bring you up to date on the news that we are following here right now. And again, it is constantly changing. Dick mentioned it. Let me bring it up to you again. Flight MH17, a Malaysian plane that has crashed on the Ukraine-Russian border. There is still not a lot of actual verifiable information about what happened here. The airline company itself, Malaysian Airlines, says they have lost contact with the aircraft, which in and of itself is simply dangerous and is simply telling at this point. According to the aviation source telling Interfax, a Boeing Malaysian Airlines that was flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur began to descend about 50 kilometers before entering Russian airspace and was subsequently found burning on the ground in Ukraine. We will continue to follow this story. Next up, plenty of politicians say stupid things they want to forget, but one former elected official has said far too much, and plenty in his party wish he would just go away. It's coming up next, right here on MidPoint.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose. When you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Now on Newsmax TV, Ted Cruz is hated by official Washington, but is still a Tea Party favorite. Find out what the pundits are saying about his presidential plans and how Texas might pick the next president. Go now to Newsmax TV.
Tubal pregnancy or something like that. What about in the case of rape? Should it be legal or not?
Well, you know, people always want to try and make that as one of those things. Well, how do you slice this particularly tough sort of ethical question? It seems to me, first of all, from what I understand from doctors, that's really rare. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down. But let's assume that maybe that didn't work or something. You know, I think there should be some punishment, but the punishment ought to be on the rapist and not attacking the child.
We live in a world where every single one of us has to live by a certain edict. Everything we say or do or write or utter in public will likely never ever go away. It will live until the stars are cold and there are no more Expendables sequels. But no matter how many times we say it out loud, notable figures and politicians never seem to get it. One of those is former Missouri Representative Todd Akin, who no matter how he tries to wriggle out of it, will never escape his illegitimate rape comment. And as Akin seeks to make a comeback, start lining up those in the Republican Party who wish, frankly, he would just go away. Welcome back to MidPoint, the president of Endeavor Strategic Communications and noted Republican strategist. Pleasure to welcome Kurt Bardella back to the show. Kurt, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
Pleasure. Before we begin, I want you to hear this. Now, this is Todd Akin on the Steve Molsberg Show earlier this week here on the Newsmax TV network on Tuesday, saying that Republicans were afraid to support him after the gaffe because of the assassination power of the media. Here's that sound.
They were afraid. What were they afraid of? They were afraid of a media that could target and assassinate somebody by misinterpreting what they'd said. And they were also afraid that what they're going to do was to use me the way they'd done with Tom McCarthy years and years ago, who was absolutely right in everything he said, but they said this guy is some sort of anti-communist nut and all this sort of stuff. And then after he died, KGB files open up. Goodness gracious, everything he said was true except understated. So they were afraid of that.
Kurt, let's get right to the meat of this whole conversation right off the top here. Isn't it really really correct to say that there are people in the Republican Party who right now just wish that Mr. Aiken would shut up and go away?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I mean, Todd Aiken sounds downright delusional in his comments there, comparing himself in that way. To suggest that everything Todd Aiken has ever said was right is absolutely absurd. The reason why no one in the Republican Party wants anything to do with Todd Aiken is because he said a point-blank stupid comment that is completely undefensible. And for him to try to reinvent himself and recreate history and rewrite history is downright laughable. And it has nothing to do with media assassination or the liberal media bias or mainstream media targeting conservatives or anything like that. Todd Aiken said something that was point-blank dumb, ignorant, offensive, and there's no place for him in the current debate or in the Republican Party.
All right, now let's go ahead and look at forgiveness here, because every time one of these things happens, we always have people who apologize. It doesn't make a difference whether it's a politician, an entertainer, or anybody, and we're always told that we're a forgiving nation here. Why then would an apology at this point? And again, Mr. Aiken says that he has apologized once before for this, so why can't we forgive him if he has apologized?
Well, it sure doesn't sound like by that soundbite you just played that he's apologetic about anything. He's actually trying to cast himself as a victim wronged and assassinated by the media. It doesn't sound like he's backing away too much from anything that he said. In fact, it feels like he's doubling down. In the analogy that he used, he said the person said that he was right all along. Is Todd Aiken suggesting now that he was actually right all along and that we're all wrong to not embrace him back into the political spotlight? This is a guy who's trying to get his last gasp at 15 seconds of fame, trying to sell some books, make some money, and God bless, that's his prerogative. But for him to think that there's going to be an actual substantial role in politics for him after what he said, no way.
Now, let's also look at the fact that when you apologize, that's one thing. When you continue to double down, that's another thing. But now when you continue and you are bringing other people into it here, this is the thing that I think has people so astounded. First of all, and I want everybody to look at this, here's a couple of statements that we have here. First of all, I want to show you this one as far as Mitt Romney is concerned. When asked to comment about my instantly infamous legitimate rape, now this is Todd Aiken speaking. When asked to comment about my instantly infamous legitimate rape, I describe what Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney should have said. Quote, a credibly accused rapist is giving the keynote speech at the Democratic convention in 2 weeks, and you want me to denounce a decent, God-fearing man for his inelegant comments about rape. Here's one more to throw in on the fire here. It's just, this is like gasoline constantly here. This goes up and speaks to Bill Clinton here. He's now trying to bring the former president into this. The bottom line is that my career was ruined for my linking the words legitimate and rape. The Clintons, meanwhile, have maintained their careers only because the media have consciously delegitimized the rape and assault charges against Bill Clinton. I got to tell you, Kurt, there are some people out there saying that this is just despicable.
Oh, I mean, I think you would agree that there was no shortage of effort to attack the Clintons on legitimate issues, whether it be on public policy or politics, and they've put themselves in a position to be targets of that, and that's all fine and well. But to suggest Todd Aiken to use that defense, it's delusional. He's completely lost it. It is reprehensible. It's not believable. It's not credible. And it just sounds like he's just reaching and grasping for anything that can give him any potential sense of credibility. But it's not happening. No one's buying it. And it's really sad. He's not doing himself any favors. And if his actual goal is to have some semblance of legitimacy and credibility and longevity, what he's doing right now and what he's talking about does nothing to help that cause. He's hurting himself, and he's further keeping himself even more pulled back from Republican Party and from anyone who would even think about helping him. When he says stuff like that, he's just putting himself on an island.
I have to add one more to it because, as I noted, it just keeps getting poured on in this instance. Today, Thursday, on MSNBC, Aiken said he used a poor choice of words in 2012 when he suggested legitimate rape rarely causes pregnancy, stood by the argument, asserting that he should have used slightly different wording. He said that he was using the language of law enforcement agencies, and I quote now, legitimate rape is a law enforcement term and its abbreviation for legitimate case of rape. If I had been choosing my words better, I should have said legitimate case of rape, and I have acknowledged that it is a poor choice of words. Kurt, if you are a member of the Republican Party right now, you're a strategist right now sitting here, you have Republicans right in front of you, what would be your suggestion to them?
Run away from this guy as quickly as you can, because it's not about just a poor choice of words. It's about a broken way of thinking that is just flat out wrong. And under no circumstance or scenario is what he's saying making any kind of sense, or would any woman and anyone who's had to deal with the horrific tragedy of rape, to them, this is just an insane thing to say. And it's not about the choice of words. It's about the thinking behind the words that really has done it in for Todd Aiken. He seems obsessed with talking about, well, I used a poor choice of words and I could have said it better or more artfully. That's not the problem. It's the line of thinking behind those words that's really the overarching problem for Todd Aiken.
Couple of minutes we have. Let's hit two things very quickly here. The GOP is blocking a bill to overturn the Hobby Lobby decision right here. What are the dangers in here right now strategically for the Republicans?
Well, this is very clearly an effort by Senate Democrats to try to circumvent the Supreme Court because they didn't like the decision, but also to put Republicans in a bad position to have to make a vote on something. I mean, even Cory Booker, Senate Democrat, has said there's no chance this is actually going to go anywhere, no chance this is going to pass. And even if it passed the Senate, it wouldn't pass the House. So this is all for show. And I think just Republicans need to not say anything that could be misconstrued or perceived as a quote-unquote war on women, and just deal with it very quietly. We'll see if Harry Reid puts it on the floor for a vote. If he does, I don't think he even has 60 votes to get there, because it doesn't help any Democrat running in a challenging environment right now to have to take these kind of controversial votes, because it's clearly just political play.
All right, 1 minute left. You mentioned the war on women. Amber Barno is a military veteran who was on our show yesterday here on MidPoint on the Newsmax TV network. She said, absolutely, there is no war on women. Listen up.
There is no war on women in America. It doesn't exist. There is a real war on women, and that exists all around the world. You see it in the Middle East. I saw it in Iraq and Afghanistan when I was over there on my deployments. The oppression of women is real there.
All right, then, is this something, this war on women, that the Democrats can actually still make hay on, or is this something that the Republicans need to say at this point, we can put this aside right now, this isn't going to work against us?
You know, when there's, and I think that was a really good point, there are some very real challenges going on in the world and real injustices towards women that are unthinkable to anyone who lives in this country. And here at home, we have some very real problems. The war on women charade with the Sandra Fluke hearing and all the things that we saw 2 years ago, I just don't think that works right now, given the amount of things going wrong in this country. There's a real crisis on the border. There's a real humanitarian situation with innocent children who are on the border, who are marooned here in uncertainty and ambiguity. Our borders aren't secure. Our economy is not doing well. There are so many real problems that these manufactured type of political attacks that Democrats used successfully in 2012 just isn't going to work in 2014.
Kurt Bardella, always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again real soon.
You too. Thanks a lot.
All right, next up, top stories making the rounds on our mothership website. And later in the hour, we'll reveal the most trustworthy and honest politician in America, and we'll reveal it by using his own words to prove it. It's coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.
Hi, I'm Jean, and this is my one and only Henry. We just love scouring flea markets for special treasures. But with my type 2 diabetes, we now spend all our time at the pharmacy. With Medcare, I don't have to. They deliver everything I need right to my door with free shipping. Plus, Medcare takes private policies, Medicaid, even my Medicare. Sleep apnea machines, nebulizers. Medcare has all the finest medical supplies. The best part, Medcare saves us money. Medcare allows us the time to do the things we love. Medcare, we deliver a better life.
I met St. Jude because I had a cancer inside of me. They diagnosed me with a brain tumor. You have to be strong and don't give up. Attitude is everything. You have to fight.
Imagine your doctor tells you your child has cancer with only months to live. Where would you go? What would you do? Who would you turn to? Fortunately, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital
is fighting every day to save children's lives. And with a gift of just $19 a month, you can join the fight.
This is my kid that they're giving back to me. I am so grateful.
At St. Jude, no family ever receives a bill. In fact, no family pays St. Jude for anything. That's why your gift of $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, is so important.
When I thought that I might lose my son, they gave me hope.
You are not only saving a child's life, you're breathing life back into that family.
If I hadn't have come here, I wouldn't have my son.
St. Jude's life-saving research and treatment is shared freely with hospitals around the world.
St. Jude gives you hope and happiness. They're helping us live. Maybe in the future, kids won't have to go through this. We'll find a cure and it'll all be over.
Please, call and become a St. Jude Partner in Hope right now.
Are you having problems with the IRS? Liens and levies, garnishments, seizures, penalties? Are you being audited? Our trained professionals at Wallen Associates can help. We've helped thousands of individuals and businesses solve their tax problems and save big money. Put a wall between you and the IRS. Wallen Associates has over 30 years of experience dealing with the IRS, and we can help your family or your business.
Call 800-745-2250, 800-745-2250.
Hello, I'm John Bachman. Welcome to this Newsmax Now update. We'll continue to bring you the latest details on that Malaysia Airlines flight reportedly downed over Ukraine today. Ed Berlin will be along with more on that in just a moment as that story continues to develop. But we also want to talk about some other stories making news today. A former drug dealer could not stop his execution after a series of last-minute appeals failed. 54-year-old John Middleton died last night from lethal injection. Middleton killed 3 people in Missouri out of fear they would report his drug activity. We told you earlier this week here on Newsmax TV that Middleton's execution had been stayed, but that was overturned last night, and of course there's no going back now. This is the 6th execution in Missouri this year. Only Florida and Texas have 7 and have executed more people than Missouri. Now, a former Panamanian dictator filing a lawsuit saying he's owed money from a popular video game. Manuel Noriega claims Call of Duty Black Ops 2 makes him out to be a kidnapper, murderer, an enemy of the state. Not to say a federal court has done that already. Noriega says the company owes him a portion of the billions of dollars the game has brought in since its 2012 debut. The game, set in Latin America in the 1980s, portrays Noriega as a betrayer of the CIA. In 1990, you might remember, Noriega was sentenced in the U.S. and was convicted of many charges, including drug trafficking, money laundering, and murder. He's currently serving a 20-year sentence. The video games company has declined to comment. More news ahead in 30 minutes.
All right, governors are up in arms on the issue of illegals heading for their states. Taxpayers should be up in arms over a new CBO report. And the only person not up in arms over Lois Lerner and her emails is, of course, Lois Lerner. Put your arms down. We'll calm the global nerves. Answers. Let's welcome in Tim Colley, managing editor of the Newsmax Mothership website, for the latest stories trending across the globe. Tim, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Ed.
Let's go ahead and start right away with the breaking news that everybody is following right now. Malaysian passenger jet shot down over the Ukraine-Russian border. We are still, as you are as well, in the process of getting information on this almost minute by minute.
Yeah, this looks very bad. This could be a game changer. I mean, we're talking now about 295 people who are likely dead in the Ukraine, according to Ukrainian officials. This plane was apparently shot down, and everyone seems to be accepting that because there's been 2 reports of planes being shot down in the same airspace this week alone at 33,000 feet. The only thing that could shoot a plane down at that height would be a Russian jet or a Russian surface-to-air missile.
What we are learning thus far, and I'm going to follow up what you're giving us as well, it's all on the Newsmax.com website. There is the possibility here, as you mentioned, about a shoot-down. No one is actually saying that that is the case that has happened yet. They lost details, or they lost contact with this plane probably at about 50 kilometers outside of the area that they were supposedly descending at that point. So we are still watching, and I would guess that this is something that as the news comes in, you're going to be updating on a minute-by-minute basis on the website.
Yes, definitely. I got to add a few things, though. Ukraine is saying that this plane was shot down, and they're actually giving the type of missile that shot it down.
Okay.
They're identifying it. Again, there's been two incidents. Last night, a jet was apparently shot down over the Ukraine in what amounted to a dogfight by a Russian jet. This is all coming from Ukrainian officials. And on Monday, a Ukrainian troop transport flying at 22,000 feet was shot down.
We'll keep an eye on that story. About a minute left. Two others real quick. Governor Fallon, I have the right to know what's happening with illegals. The governors are now speaking out against the administration.
Yeah, this policy is becoming a perfect storm for the Obama administration. On the left, they're faced with a Democratic revolt of Nancy Pelosi and other leaders who are saying these children should not be immediately deported. On the right, and in communities across the United States, they're facing both Democrats and Republican mayors, governors, and other officials saying we don't want these children brought here, and we certainly don't want them brought here secretly. The federal government has been moving these kids, they claim, without notifying local officials, taking them to different facilities in buses and so forth. So there's a lot of anger brewing on this policy.
Other stories on the Newsmax.com website talk about Chris Christie, the CBO, and a whole lot more. And of course, we will constantly update the Malaysian Airlines story as well. Tim, thanks so much for joining us.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ed.
All right, every day we try to bring you up to speed on what's happening on Newsmax.com. Stay with us for the latest on the Malaysian jet over the Ukraine. Now, let's take a moment for this American moment.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
It was a stirring moment. Never before had a president resigned and another man risen to the nation's highest office. On August 9, 1974, Gerald R. Ford was sworn in as the country's 38th president. It was a time in the nation rocked by scandal. The same day, August 9, 1974, the House Judiciary Committee passed articles of impeachment against then-President Richard M. Nixon. That same day, Richard Nixon resigned, and Vice President Ford was hastily sworn in as Commander-in-Chief by Chief Justice Warren Burger. Soon after taking office, Gerald Ford ended the Watergate prosecution by granting Richard Nixon a full and unconditional pardon to the fallen president with this decree.
My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over.
On October 17, 1974, President Ford agreed to appear before Congress to defend his historic decision.
I was absolutely convinced then, as I am now, that if we had had this series, an indictment, a trial, a conviction, and anything else that transpired after that, that the attention of the President, the Congress, and the American people would have been diverted from the problems that we have to solve.
Historians have lauded President Ford's political courage in granting the pardon, but the move was widely believed to have cost him the presidency in 1976, when he was defeated by former Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis, and this is an American moment.
When Bob got into the accident, I was terrified. His injuries were so severe, but once we knew he was going to be okay, what then?
I couldn't go back to work for a long time, and we got way behind on our bills.
We'd hired an attorney, but when our case kept dragging on, we didn't know how we were going to get by. Thankfully, our attorney knew about Oasis Legal Finance.
Oasis looked at our case and got us the money the very next day.
What a relief it was. We didn't have to wait until our case settled, and the money from Oasis helped us when we needed it most.
At first, I wasn't so sure. What if we lost the case? How would we be able to pay back Oasis? But then I found out if we did lose, we wouldn't have to pay them back, so there was no risk in doing it. No risk.
If you were involved in an accident and hired an attorney to fight for the compensation you deserve but need money now before your case settles, then call Oasis today. Oasis has given millions of dollars to people like you who need money fast while waiting for their case to settle. There's no risk, so call now.
I was hurt badly in a car accident just after my wife gave birth. We were counting on the cash from my lawsuit to get caught up, but the case took forever.
Honestly, we didn't know what we were going to do.
Then we saw an Oasis TV commercial and called. We were approved and got money from Oasis the next day.
Not in a week, the very next day.
I was hurt at work and filed a workers' comp claim. I called Oasis and they gave me the cash I needed. Unfortunately, I ended up losing my case, but Oasis let us keep the money. They kept their promise, and we didn't need to pay them back.
There are no out-of-pocket costs and no payments until your case is settled. If you lose your case, you don't have to repay Oasis. There's no risk. Call Oasis now to see how much money you can get before your case settles.
Call now, 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184.
The original premise for opening Gitmo, that detainees would not be able to challenge their detention, was found unconstitutional 5 years ago. In the meantime, Gitmo has become a symbol around the world for an America that flouts the rule of law. Our allies won't cooperate with us if they think a terrorist will end up at Gitmo. During a time of budget cuts, we spend $150 million each year to imprison 166 people.
Close to America, we have Guantanamo Bay, where those who plotted against America or were part of those groups who sought to kill Americans are housed to this day. This is the prison we know about. In Afghanistan, as the American military prepares to hopefully one day leave, there is another, much more secret prison that exists. Let's dig into this and much more as we welcome back co-founder of the National Security Leadership Foundation and an internationally recognized security expert, Kerry Patton, joins us on MidPoint. Kerry, pleasure to see you again.
Thanks for having me back on.
Kerry, here we go now. The Guardian is reporting this story. There are hunger strikes against segregated housing, unsanitary water, lack of access to the International Committee of the Red Cross. But we're talking about Afghanistan. This is the U.S. military's Bagram prison in Afghanistan. We knew this was there, but there's some really troubling things coming out of this prison right now as to the prisoners that are still there.
Well, let's take it a step back for a moment here. Number one, it's not Bagram, it's actually Parwan. There's a detention facility in Parwan that holds foreign terrorists, and that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about foreign jihadists that the U.S. and our coalition have captured on the battle space. With that said, understand that there is a game of manipulation being played. The jihadists whom we fight understand better than most of us how to manipulate the laws, how to manipulate people's minds to play a hearts and mind campaign of their own. And when you talk about this detention facility and you talk about different black sites that exist throughout the world, know that a terrorist will do everything in their power to circumvent what is truly taking place. They want to manipulate people. They want to use the media to their advantage so there can be outcry on what's unfolding. And that's exactly what's taking place right now. I can tell you, these people don't have it great, but they do have it well, to the point where they're eating ice cream pretty much every single day.
Is that one of the biggest problems with this prison, the prison at Parwan that you mentioned, and the others as well, that we are simply never getting the actual idea of what happens in the prisons because it is secret, it is clamped down, and a lot of times what we are hearing is maybe second and third hand information, and also maybe even a little hyperbole from the terrorist groups themselves?
I think you just hit the nail on the head. You know, it's hard to get information out of these prisons, and what information does come out has to be vetted accordingly because, you know, again, hyperbole, you know, that's a lot of what this is. It's a lot of hearsay.
Let's also now talk about what happens after this, because the United States is looking to get out of Afghanistan Afghan authorities have already said that they will not continue to hold any of these foreign detainees. So we have what Americans consider to be very dangerous people sitting here, and still those who want to kill Americans. We leave, the Afghans release them. Where do they go? We have a real vacuum problem here, don't we?
Well, and that's the biggest concern that I have right now, especially for the veterans who have sacrificed so much while fighting the past 13 plus years against these dirtballs. What are we going to do? Or we're just going to let them go? Obviously, that's not the proper answer. And I can tell you, I talked to a lot of military folks and a lot of contractors today that are responsible to conduct snatch and grab operations. And they have confided in me and said, what's the point of capturing these folks if we're just going to have to fight them again in the battle space? We might as well just kill them where we find them. And it's kind of difficult to argue with their mindset right now. Think about it.
The other thing to look at as well, you mentioned some of the black bags and some of the black ops that's going on, but certainly I want to talk about those black bag operations. There's another report coming out that talks about there are so many countries in here, at least 54 countries aid the CIA in a post-9/11 program of secret detentions, renditions, and interrogations. That's to be expected, though. Certainly people know about this. It's almost as if the secret that nobody really wants to talk about. But as you pointed out, there are prisons and detention centers all around the world, but it's not just America who does it. This is another attempt at trying to stop the bad guys. How am I doing so far?
You're absolutely right. And I think that's one of the things that we might have a little bit of confidence in. Some of the nations that do maintain these quote-unquote black sites, we might not hold on to the prisoners, but who's to say the countries that are holding on to the prisoners won't? A place like, hypothetically, Libya, when Gaddafi was in power there was a CIA black site right there. And knowing Gaddafi and his mindset, I wouldn't have been surprised if we kept him in power if he would have ensured that people that we brought into these sites would have stayed locked up, if not killed or executed.
I got about a minute or so left here. There's a discussion of 6 of the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay being transferred to Uruguay. Why that country of all places?
It's just a matter of what country is willing to support us in our renditions. And it could have been any country. It just happens to be that I think Uruguay is trying to work their magic in beefing up diplomatic ties with the United States, because they have a lot of problems in Uruguay right now and the surrounding nations. So they're going to do whatever they can to help us so we can turn around and help them.
I only got about 45 seconds left. We'll have you back on to talk about this story again, but the NYPD is monitoring potential al-Qaeda threats to the U.S. Tennis Open. How concerned should Americans be about big events like that being the next terrorist target?
Yeah, big events are always a big concern for anybody that works Homeland Security. And really, I hope, though, that our professionals that are doing the job don't get tunnel vision thinking only al-Qaeda would be the big threat. Look, you know what's going on with Hezbollah operatives, the Iranian proxy out of Lebanon that's fighting in Syria right now. We know that there are Hezbollah operatives that cross the Canadian border and the south border as well. So let's just not get tunnel vision. Know that the threat exists, but it doesn't exist just from one organization.
Americans perhaps to understand that the terrorists are always looking for a hole someplace and always looking for someplace to gain an edge. So if you've got to undergo a little bit of a security check when you go to places like the U.S. Tennis Open or other sporting events, put up with it. It really is there for your protection as well. Kerry, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. Thank you so much. We'll do it again.
You got it. Anytime. Thank you.
All right, there's some truth as to what's going on right now. And again, that story is interesting because the NYPD is finding out that Inspire, that's the online English-speaking magazine of al-Qaeda, they're telling people and supporting their people now to go after sporting events. We'll do what we can to stop the bad guys. Coming up next, telling it like it is, right here on MidPoint.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you're a senior or baby boomer, you may be missing out on some important information. Tens of millions of boomers are set to retire, yet many don't know that how you file your Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect. That's why Newsmax created a special report offering you the best strategies to maximize your Social Security benefits. For example, this report reveals a weird trick that could help you add up to $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. It also shows how some qualifying recipients can add up to $1,000 to their monthly payments. To get your copy with our free offer along with 7 additional money-making booklets. Simply go online. Newsmax says this report is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to our website today and find out if you qualify to add extra money to your Social Security. Remember, it's your money. You deserve the most back in your retirement.
Back in the 50s, sod farmers invented hydroseeding as the easiest way to grow beautiful grass. But you're still doing this. You want a great-looking lawn, but have dry spots, dog spots, high traffic areas, and shade. What a nightmare. You seed, water, and wait, but the only thing growing are the weeds. It's no wonder the seed gets washed away, blown away by wind, and eaten by birds. Not anymore. Introducing the revolutionary Hydro Mousse Liquid Lawn with spray and stay technology. The grass grows where you spray it. Start growing with ease. If you can water your lawn, you can hydro seed. Simply attach to any garden hose and turn the dial to seed. Forget the guesswork. Hydro Mousse shows you exactly where you're planting. The Green Mousse formula contains an eco-friendly sticking solution that attaches the seed to the soil and a conditioner to loosen hard dirt, allowing it to absorb water, resulting in a terrific looking lawn. We sprayed Hydro Mousse on this vertical burlap wall, and look, the seed locks in place, even upside down. And the grass grows like crazy, even on a vertical wall. It grows in extreme heat or cold conditions. It's perfect for dog spots, high traffic areas, large areas, and shade, and no more guesswork. Hydro Mousse includes a mixture of high-quality seed that blends perfectly with your existing lawn. It's never been faster or easier to get professional results at a fraction of the cost. So why pay a fortune for sod or seed the old-fashioned way when you can get the complete Hydro Mousse kit for only $19.95 to bring your lawn back to life? That's enough to do 100 spots or 50 square feet. But call now and we'll double the coverage. That's an incredible 200 spots or 100 square feet. And don't forget to ask the operator for large lot and acreage discounts. So don't put up with this when you can have this.
Call 1-800-341-7712 or go to hydromousse.com.
Time to wake up. I've got a job to do today.
I've got a job to do today.
Don't forget, you've got a job to do today.
Hey, Mom. I got the job. Thanks.
I've got the job. Welcome aboard.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Your donations to Goodwill fund job training programs right in your community.
Feels good to start fresh, right?
Sure does. And like that, you're a job creator.
Remember, had we done comprehensive immigration reform, we wouldn't be having this issue. And everyone here, the border is secure. Martin Heinrich talked to the caucus today. He's a border state senator. He said he can say without any equivocation, the border is secure.
I don't know about you, but I am so glad that it's finally over. After all the years and months and weeks and days and hours and minutes and seconds, what with everything we have faced here in America over these last few weeks along the southwestern border, those stories and tales and rumors and innuendos and reports and sources, finally, there is absolutely nothing to fear. We can all sleep safe and tucked into our little beds tonight, no matter where we live, no matter where we call home. Yes, America, Harry Reid has finally freed us from the shackles of worry and concern. Celebrate, rejoice. The border is secure.
Behind this gate of the U.S. Border Patrol in Nogales is a converted warehouse where the children are staying. Today, there are at least 750 of them living here, ranging in age from 3 to 18, all of them alone. These are the photos taken of the kids last night, wrapped in marathon runner-type blankets, sleeping in tubs, and being monitored by DHS Border Patrol agents. They shouldn't be here. Ordinarily, this facility only houses adults who cross the border illegally. But in the last 11 days, the Department of Homeland Security says it's been overwhelmed with a flood of children crossing into the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. 48,000 just last month, as many as 200 children a day.
All this noise about tens of thousands of illegal kids, parents, gang members, young adults, transformers, the Yeti, Justin Bieber impersonators, all fabrications. There is no reason whatsoever to panic, worry, shake your head, be concerned, request another shot of original Mexican tequila to calm your nerves. The border is secure. Harry Reid said it, so it must be true. Everybody, calm down.
Remain calm. All is well. All is well. Remain.
Look, I know there are so many of you right now who doubt what I'm saying, but stay with me here. It has to be true. Harry Reid said so. The border is not only secure, but everything we have feared is absolutely cared for, and I can prove it. Check this. Georgia Congressman John Lewis took the time to help spread the news at almost the same time Harry Reid was telling us that there was nothing to worry about when it comes to our border. One of our elected officials, the people we know have our best interest at heart every single second of every single day and would never lead us astray, proclaimed the doors to America are wide open. See? Says so right there in the tweet. Maryland Representative Elijah Cummings went even further, noting there is nothing more important in America than caring for these immigrant children. Nothing. Which can only mean every American child is being fed 3 squares every day. Every one of them has a roof over their heads. Every one of them is receiving the finest education. Every one of them is safe from predators. So all those pesky things we want our tax dollars to go for, not needed anymore. They're all solved. We spend so much of our precious time seeking the right people to trust. The elected officials we know would never, under any circumstance, seek to lead us astray and feed us anything that might be even remotely considered close to bovine waste product. And Harry Reid is the man we've been looking for. You still doubt me? How could we, for one scintilla of a second, think he's nothing more than a bloviating gas bag when we recall what he said about Obamacare?
All that good news, there's plenty of horror stories being told. All of them are untrue, but they're being told all over America.
Of course, every single person who said they were telling the truth about how the new health care law plunged them into debt, made them choose new doctors, forced to stand in lines, waiting for care, saw their savings drain away. All faults. All faults. Harry Reid said it, so it's got to be true.
And everyone here, the border is secure.
Rest easy, America. Harry Reid stands ever watchful, ever resolute, filled to the brim and overflowing with a tremendous amount of, well, I don't have to tell you. After this, I'm certain you already have a good idea what he's full of. Thank you, Harry Reid, for showing America the truth. And that is telling it like it is. Next hour, American companies doing exactly what any of us would do when they're overtaxed. It's next.
Do you sleep too hot while your partner sleeps too cool? Do you struggle to sleep at the right temperature? Now Sleep Number has a solution that's as revolutionary as its beds. Introducing the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer. The amazing Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer allows both of you to select your ideal temperature for better sleep. The Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer works with any mattress brand. It features active air technology, which evenly distributes air to heat and cool each side to the temperature you prefer for head-to-toe comfort. Call or click now for this free $50 savings card and catalog.
My husband and I both prefer different temperatures. He likes to have his side of the bed a little bit warmer, and I like to have mine a little bit cooler, and we are finally sleeping better together.
After sleeping on a dual temp layer, I find that I have such a restful night's sleep that when I wake up in the morning, I am energized and I'm ready for the day.
All night long, you can each enjoy sleep at a temperature that perfectly matches what your body needs for comfortable sleep, so you can sleep better together. In a research study, 75% reported poor sleep because of their sleeping temperature. That's because your body's temperature naturally fluctuates at night. But with the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer, you can sleep comfortably warm or cool. And because the revolutionary Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer helps solve an important sleep problem, it was selected as a very innovative product by Good Housekeeping. Remember, the Sleep Number dual temp layer can be added to any mattress brand, so everyone can enjoy sleeping better at the perfect temperature. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now for a free $50 savings card and catalog with price list. For your peace of mind, the Sleep Number dual temp layer comes with a 100-night in-home trial. Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now. That's 1-800-317-5283 for your free $50 savings card and catalog.
The Russians are not just coming again, but they are right on the doorstep of the White House when it comes to what they have and have not done in the Ukraine. The president has spoken, but is this a big stick in the global sense of things and American-Russian relations? The Obama administration is taking credit for the stock market going well past their ceiling while noting all is well with the American economy. Time for a little in-depth discussion on the facts. And if you were a big corporation based in America being slammed by taxes, what would you do? If leave was your first utterance, welcome to the real world. Real Answers. We question everything for Thursday, July 17th, 2014. All that plus our daily trip to Outland. It's where the interesting people live. That and a whole lot more coming up after we turn it over to John Bachman for this edition of Newsmax Now.
Thank you for that, Ed. We're continuing to focus on the reports of this downed Malaysian jet plane, a passenger plane, apparently shot down in the eastern part of Ukraine near the Russian border there. We're just getting new reports. The AP confirming the White House is aware of this. President Obama is talking to his advisors about it. Also, White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said Russian President Vladimir Putin mentioned initial reports of a downed passenger jet near the border with a phone call, or during a phone call with President Obama today. Some more details we have for you. The Malaysian Airlines passenger plane had about 300 people on board. It was on its way from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. That according to Russia's Interfax news agency. Around 11:30 today, Malaysia Airlines tweeted that they had lost contact with the flight advisor to Ukraine's interior minister, says that the plane was shot down via a ground-to-air missile. Anti-Russian activists in Ukraine claimed it was shot down over territory controlled by pro-Russian separatists. Of course, much more to come on this. We'll keep you posted as we get more information throughout the day. Now, back here in the United States, the IRS scandal continues to play out in Washington, D.C. The Justice Department recently announcing that it will indeed launch a criminal investigation into the missing Lois Lerner emails. James Cole will appear at a House Oversight Committee sometime today. Meanwhile, former IRS Director Lois Lerner refuses to speak to that committee. Earlier this month, her attorney said that Lois did not destroy any records. And of course, we know that the majority of those emails were lost when a number of hard drives crashed at the IRS. The agency says there was no way to recover them. Also in Washington, D.C. today, lawmakers demanding that General Motors fire its chief lawyer and further open its compensation plan. Kenneth Feinberg, a compensation expert, had this to say about GM's commitment.
We will compensate the innocent victims of this tragedy. That's the purpose of the protocol, and I am confident that it will succeed.
Well, Feinberg has done this a number of times before, including the 9/11's Victims Fund as well as the BP Fund. GM recalled 2.6 million cars, small cars, beginning in February because their ignition switches can fall out of the run position, causing the engines to stall, and other things like airbags and power steering to lose critical function. More news ahead in 30 minutes, plus much more on MidPoint. I'm John Bachman. Here's Ed Berliner.
Today I have approved a new set of sanctions on some of Russia's largest companies and financial institutions. Along with our allies, with whom I've been coordinating closely the last several days and weeks, I've repeatedly made it clear that Russia must halt the flow of weapons and fighters across the border into Ukraine, that Russia must urge separatists to release their hostages and support a ceasefire, that Russia needs to pursue internationally mediated talks and agree to meaningful monitors on the border. I've made this clear directly to Mr. Putin, Many of our European partners have made this clear directly to Mr. Putin. We have emphasized our preference to resolve this issue diplomatically, but that we have to see concrete actions and not just words, that Russia, in fact, is committed to trying to end this conflict along the Russia-Ukraine border. So far, Russia has failed to take any of the steps that I mentioned.
If Vladimir Putin has his way, there will be a new USSR. There would be yet another Cold War, and America would once again fear Russia. While he may not be going about it strategically correct, there is no doubt we have another dictatorial madman running that country. And President Obama has been forced to go head-to-head with Putin and his buddies yet again. Question is, this time did he get it right? And what's down the road for Mr. Muscles in Russia? Let's welcome to MidPoint from the Republican consulting firm Harcom Strategies and a veteran consulting on political campaigns around the world. Tyler Harbor joins us today via the telephone. Tyler, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Tyler, first of all, your initial reaction on the president's sanctions against Russia and what he did announce.
Well, Putin said that he is, again, very angry at the sanctions, just the same reaction that he gave the first time. And we believe, at least from the observation side, that these sanctions are soft. Sure, they're going to squeeze some of the economic aspects of Russia, especially in the energy and oil-related fields, but this is really not going to have a big effect. It's not like Putin is going to rush to bring the soldiers back across the border from Ukraine. It's not like he's going to reverse his ideology of establishing a new Russian empire. And these sanctions are going to have the same effect that the last sanctions had. Absolutely nothing.
All right, now here is Russian President Vladimir Putin, the quote that he said yesterday in Brazil, which of course is a lot of saber rattling. We've heard this all before, but it's worth pointing out that here he comes again. And I'd like to quote, without any doubt they, U.S. sanctions, will push U.S.-Russian relations to a dead end and cause very serious damage. And I am sure that this also damages national long-term strategic interests of the U.S. government and the U.S. people. Honestly now, is there anything that Vladimir Putin and Russia can do in response to this that would have anybody worried whatsoever?
Well, they may have just shot down a commercial airliner. You know, it still remains to be seen whether or not the weapons that they have, that the Russians have given the separatists, or that the Russian armed forces in Ukraine have shot down multiple planes, or if they're responsible for this new Malaysian Airlines airline that has just come down. So it's this is a big deal. I think that the sanctions play right into Putin's hands. He wants to separate the United States and the USSR, or pardon me, the Russian Federation. And he wants to have that separation, and he wants to reignite the Cold War. And we just keep playing into his hands. And hopefully now that that maybe perhaps this Malaysian Airlines flight has gone down, and maybe information comes out that it was Russian-made weapons, that it may have been even Russian-based missiles that have taken it down. It still remains to be seen, of course. That maybe that forces some real action to stop this Russian expansion and stop this Russian empire building. But Putin doesn't fear Obama. He doesn't fear the United States, because we're all talk and no action.
All right, now I want to get on to Flight 17 for a moment here. According to the Facebook page of Anton Gerashenko, who's advisor to the Ukrainian Interior Ministry, the aircraft was, quote-unquote, shot down over Ukraine by, quote-unquote, terrorists operating a Buk surface-to-air missile system. Now, let's just say that indeed this was something, and we don't know at this point right now. But if the Russians were to shoot this down, wouldn't that be incredibly stupid of them to do?
Well, I think it may be a case of mistaken identity. And yes, I do believe it would be something incredibly stupid to do. But a lot of times, especially at 30,000, 40,000 feet, the cargo plane and the commercial airliner do not look dissimilar. And so I think it could be a case of mistaken identity. I think it is definitely a huge tactical mistake. But hearing about the broadness and the size of the debris field, and the fact that it would take a semi-autonomous military-based missile to take down an airliner of that size and of that altitude, it still kind of remains to be seen if a field-based or a field-based rocket program could actually take it down. And I think it's so close to the Russian border, we may never actually know. But I think there may be suspicions that there was strong involvement. But this is just a horrible tragedy, and maybe this is the tragedy that sets in motion what should have happened the first time with Putin, which is direct action to stop the expansion of his Russian empire.
Okay, let's get right to that now. Direct action to stop the empire. You use the phrase empire building and Russian expansion then. What then could the president have done in order to get right to that point of getting to the heart of this matter?
We could have dispatched special forces to help train and help stabilize the Ukrainian military and help stabilize Ukrainian military lines. The Ukrainians have said repeatedly that they needed weapons, they needed additional resources, and they have asked for additional weapons. And from what I understand, the United States has limited the type of weapons and resources it has given to the Ukrainians. And I think that we should have taken a grander stand here. We needed to mark a bright line of distinction and say we are actively going to back the Ukrainian government, and we are going to hold fast on the lines, and we are not going to allow the Russian separatists or the Russian armed forces or whoever it may be that is pro-Russian and pro-Putin to continue to eat away at the Ukrainian countryside.
Tyler, let me interrupt you, though, for a moment, because what you're talking about is putting boots on the ground in Ukraine. This is already a war-weary nation to the point where we're trying to get boots off the ground in a lot of places right now. We're trying to get Americans out of harm's way. So wouldn't that be almost impossible at this point? I mean, certainly the backlash on that would be something that the administration at this point in time, with the backlash they've taken on everything else, simply doesn't want a chance.
Sure, and I'm not necessarily saying we need to put a military force there. I'm saying we need to do something similar that we did in Iraq a few weeks ago, which is bring in several hundred special forces, specially trained military experts, and help them or allow them to help the Ukrainian armed forces. I'm not saying put our boys on the front lines. I'm saying that we need to equip the Ukrainians to be able to protect the lines, and right now they are completely unable to protect anything. Their own government buildings are being taken over. It's riots in the streets. It's complete anarchy, and I think that they really need some help, and no one has stepped up, and we just keep throwing these paper sanctions at Putin, and he keeps saying, oh, that's scary, that makes me angry, but it really doesn't stop him from doing anything.
All right, couple of minutes we have left here. Putin is not going to be able to be he will not be able to put back together the USSR. That simply is something that doesn't seem as if it will ever happen. It would only be a pipe dream for those who claim it may happen. But obviously he wants to put an empire back together. He wants to be seen as dangerous again. What is it that America needs to do right now, whether it's the Obama administration or someone after him, in order to prepare ourselves for what many believe is an eventuality that the Russians will be stronger again and they will create some sort of a real problem for us in a not too short period of time?
I think they're already creating a problem for us. They have a significant control over the energy outflow, the natural gas, the crude oil, and even iron ore, copper ore, even coal output.
Then what should we be doing right now?
What should we do? We should be putting people on the ground to not be on the front lines, but to help the Ukrainians stop this expansion, because if he expands in Ukraine, he'll expand everywhere else. And he may not build the USSR again, but he will have an impact.
Is there anything else we can do, knowing full well that Putin would love to create a cozy relationship with China as well to the West, and that becomes part of the problem?
I think it probably is already part of the problem, especially since our economy is so dependent upon Chinese investment. I think we're in a really bad situation.
Would it be fair to say then that Vladimir Putin, no matter what you do to this guy at this point, he and his cronies are going to continue to rattle sabers and try and get in America's face as much as they possibly can?
Absolutely, and I think that we're taking a very Chamberlain-esque approach to this. we say, don't do that. He says, okay, I won't take Crimea. And he does anyway. And then we say, okay, well, we're just going to ignore that. And we're going to say, don't do that again. And he does something else. We've got to stand up and do something real, not just sanctions.
Tyler Harbor, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for the time. We'll do it again.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. It is interesting to note, too, that two of the companies that the president has levied sanctions against, which is Rosneft and Gazprom Bank, they are both owned by allies of Vladimir Putin, so he's getting right to the friendship base as well. Next up, the reason the American economy is in such excellent shape is because it is exactly as the Obama administration planned it. Sit on that for a few moments. We'll return with reality.
When Bob got into the accident, I was terrified. His injuries were so severe, but once we knew he was going to be okay, what then?
I couldn't go back to work for a long time, and we got way behind on our bills.
We'd hired an attorney, but when our case kept dragging on, we didn't know how we were going to get by. Thankfully, our attorney knew about Oasis Legal Finance.
Oasis looked at our case and got us the money the very next day.
What a relief it was. We didn't have to wait until our case settled, and the money from Oasis helped us when we needed it most.
At first, I wasn't so sure. What if we lost the case? How would we be able to pay back Oasis? But then I found out if we did lose, we wouldn't have to pay them back, so there was no risk in doing it. No risk.
If you were involved in an accident and hired an attorney to fight for the compensation you deserve but need money now before your case settles, then call Oasis today. Oasis has given millions of dollars to people like you who need money fast while waiting for their case to settle. There's no risk, so call now.
I was hurt badly in a car accident just after my wife gave birth. We were counting on the cash from my lawsuit to get caught up, but the case took forever.
Honestly, we didn't know what we were going to do. Then we saw an Oasis TV commercial and called. We were approved and got money from Oasis the next day.
Not in a week, the very next day.
I was hurt at work and filed a workers' comp claim. I called Oasis and they gave me the cash I needed. Unfortunately, I ended up losing my case, but Oasis let us keep the money. They kept their promise and we didn't need to pay them back.
There are no out-of-pocket costs and no payments until your case is settled. If you lose your case, you don't have to repay Oasis. There's no risk. Call Oasis now to see how much money you can get before your case settles.
Call now, 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184. 1-800-562-8184.
Now on Newsmax TV, Ted Cruz is hated by official Washington, but is still a Tea Party favorite. Find out what the pundits are saying about his presidential plans and how Texas might pick the next president. Go now to Newsmax TV.
We are making progress, as bad as the news looks, if all you were doing was watching cable TV all day long. Yes, the crisis that hit towards the end of my first campaign hit us all really badly. 2007, 2008, that was rough. But today, our businesses have added nearly 10 million new jobs over the past 52 months. Construction and housing are rebounding. Our auto industry is booming. Manufacturing's adding jobs for the first time since the 90s. The unemployment rate has fallen to its lowest point since September of 2008, the fastest one-year drop in nearly 30 years. And look, most of this is attributable to you, the American people.
The wild ride on Wall Street continues. The Dow Jones every day reaching new and unheard of heights, and the American economy is the strongest it has ever been, and it's because of the Obama administration policies. They alone have been the reason for this incredible stratospheric run of prosperity. Okay. Everyone take a breath here. That is, of course, one take on what we have seen in recent weeks and months. Now, as we do every day here on MidPoint, the truth. Welcoming the chairman of the Society to Advance Financial Education, Steve Beeman, joins us on the show. Steve, pleasure to see you again.
Well, it's always wonderful to be on with you and your audience.
Steve, here we go. First 2,000 days of Barack Obama. How has the president done? And the president and the administration will tell us in these first 2,000 days, we did it for you, America. All right, Hit us with the reality.
I think we have to look at several things. First of all, the economy had so tanked in 2008 and 9, it was bound to come back a little bit. And I think for that catalyst, we can, thank the Federal Reserve, frankly. They've kept interest rates at all-time lows for many years now, much to the surprise of most of the folks on the inside. And that has helped stimulate a stock market, which has kept people feeling like their retirement may be intact. But if we look at the economy in general, we look no further than the first quarter of this year that saw negative growth. So I think it's a little bit disingenuous for any administration to claim success in the market when in reality the economy is in transition.
Steve, give us a little bit of an explanation here on the disconnect, because every time the stock market hits a new ceiling, you will hear a number of people go, the economy's doing great. It must be doing great, because if it wasn't, the stock market would not be hitting 350,000 at this point or wherever they're heading at this point. Give us a little dose of real here.
Well, Ed, I'm glad you bring it up, and I think there's a reality here for folks to realize that stocks are priced based on many things, but one of the core things is competition in the marketplace. With interest rates so low, people don't want to go out and buy bonds. So what happens is all that money floods into dividend-paying stocks and into stocks trying to capture some semblance of a return. And for that, that's not the administration, it's not Congress, it's the Federal Reserve. The other thing to realize is that the big multinational companies are doing quite well. The J.P. Morgans of the world, the big banks are doing very well, and they're using that newfound earnings power to buy back their own stock, which is also causing stock prices to rise. So we have externalities to the market that are driving it up, not necessarily the policies of the administration.
All right, here comes a line that a good friend of mine told me this week. He said, look, if people didn't have money to spend, then they wouldn't be buying stocks, and that wouldn't mean that the economy is on great footing.
Well, I think he's somewhat right, but somewhat wrong as well. People in general aren't throwing a lot of new volume into the market. It's coming out of retirement plans, which by their nature are locked up and have to go somewhere. And if you look at consumer spending patterns, yes, we've seen a little bit of a rebound here in the second quarter, but they were very flat in the first quarter. And so I think, again, we have to be cautious. We look at like the unemployment rate. We say, wow, it's come down. We have to understand that that number is suspect. It's gamed by the administration, and this is all administrations. The better number is the labor participation rate, which actually Janet Yellen brought up yesterday, looking at it at its lowest point since the 70s. So the economy is stagnant. We're trying to see some growth. We've had it for a couple of years, but we certainly aren't booming, as some of these people would like to say.
All right, you just used a phrase here that I want you to just expound on a little bit for people here. You use the phrase labor participation rate, which I think is what a lot of people miss when they're talking about the economy. Give us a little in-depth on that as to what that is and why that is so important.
Well, if we look at the economy, if you look at unemployment as a ratio, it's looking at the percent of people that are receiving unemployment compensation. Once you fall off of that, you fall off the unemployment level. The labor participation rate looks at the number of people relative to the total labor force that are participating in the economy. And that number is frightfully low. And that reflects the 25% unemployment among young people, the 50% unemployment among young African Americans, and an overall total unemployment of about 15%.
Well, Obama does, and let's be honest here. We try to do that here. We play both sides here and make sure that everybody gets what is right and what is wrong here. Obama does rank third behind Clinton and Roosevelt in terms of stock gains. So it is fair to say that he's done some things to strengthen the economy. What have those been? A couple of keys.
Well, his policies have been very good for the big banks. They've made a lot of money. And it's been very good for some of the multinational companies, the General Electrics of the world. They've done quite well. But the core driver behind this stock market has not been the administration. It's been the Federal Reserve. And frankly, that's true amongst most administrations. It's the Federal Reserve's policies on liquidity that drive a lot of the underlying movement in the market.
So then what does the Fed do next? I think everybody is watching. Every time Janet Yellen shows up for any sort of an appearance, you all of a sudden have people put on double secret alert because they're waiting for something to happen and something miraculous to happen with the economy. Yellen appeared this week, not really much. It didn't really excite a lot of people. So where does the Fed go from here?
Well, the speculation is that not wanting to really put this economy, which is on the fringe of going down, they don't want to push it over the edge. So they're going to keep rates low. They must begin at some point moving them up a little bit. And I think Janet Yellen and the other governors are trying very diligently to find out how they can do that softly without the interest rates spiking up. And that they're afraid of because it could drive us right back into recession.
So what could be a couple of ideas then to do that?
Oh, I think they will slow down and pare back the stimulus they've had of buying these government bonds. and that in and of itself will cause a little bit more normality in the markets. But that's the number one. They don't want to take rates up. So I think you can look for them to slow down the quantitative easing over the next months.
All right, we talked about what the president has done on the positive side. In your opinion, then what has he done on the negative side to keep the stock market going up, but everything else going down?
Well, clearly the debts have gone up from the United States. Now, on his positive there, the deficits come down from over $1 trillion to $500 billion this year, and that's good for stocks. But if you look generally speaking, the implementation of the Affordable Care Act, you could love that legislation or hate it, but it created instability in the economy, and instability is bad when you're trying to have an economy that recovers. Secondly, the additional regulation from the EPA and the coal industry and others has really slowed those industries down. So there's been a mixed bag out of the administration. I think on par, you can look at the economy and say we're not really growing, so they must not be the best policies. And this market is not attributable so much to him, but to the Fed.
Well, you talked about, I want to go back, you said, you reminded us again in 2008 and 2009 when things tanked here. And one of the things that we are continuing to hear from Democrats is, hey, the deficit's down, it has to be good. How do those two, because I know there has to be a correlation here between the massive tank that went on and the deficit being down. There's got to be something in here that we're missing that maybe they're taking credit for that isn't entirely their credit.
Well, clearly, when the market came down in 2008 and 9, it hit an emotional low in the early 2009 period. There is a natural regression to the mean of stocks. So they rose just by their very nature over the subsequent years back up to the 14,000 level. That generates extra revenue for the government because they take capital gains taxes on that. In addition, as I said, corporate profits are actually improving. So they're bringing in more corporate revenues than they have. And that's helped raise the income to the government. All the while, they've been under the sequester program that was put in place several years ago, and they've been cutting military spending on a relative scale, and that's caused the deficit to decline.
Here's something that always grabs people. Stocks, for whatever reason, under Democrats, generally do better. Why is that?
Well, I think we need to be careful with any assignment here. If we look in the 1990s when the market did so well, it was a function of a couple of things. First, technology that came of life, and that caused a great deal of explosive behavior in the market. And secondly, we had a Democratic president, but we had a Republican House, and them working together gave us a balanced budget. So I think it's difficult to say, positive or negative, that any president has that much effect over the market.
Fair to say, though, that you just mentioned the Congress. That Congress and the president, whatever administration is in there, they have to learn to get along somewhere on some of these economic policies because the stock market can go 18,000, 19,000, and we can still have a very stagnant economy if they don't get together and solve a couple of key issues.
Or you could see the contrary. The market dropped back down to 14,000 real quick. So I do agree. And if you look back at successful presidencies of Ronald Reagan, who worked so closely with Tip O'Neill, of Bill Clinton, who worked with Newt Gingrich, it would be nice to see this administration reach out to the House and try to build a relationship there so they could move forward on some budgets that make sense rather than this random thing we've had going for 4 years now.
All right, Steve, you sit here and you financially educate people. Would you tell them to play the stock market now?
I would tell them that if they look at valuation, and fundamentals always matter, this market is trading right now at about 27 times earnings. If you look at an adjusted earnings, that's a little bit scary to me. So I would be cautious. I would be looking at dividend-paying stocks as some protection, and I would be looking to make more liquidity in my portfolio so that if the market does adjust to that valuation, I won't get hurt.
I'm calling you after the show to make sure that I know everything that's going on here before I do anything. I trust you on that.
It's always my pleasure.
Steve, thanks so much for joining us, my friend. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
All right, you now have had your financial education for the day, all right? Next up, a pastor showing his true love for his flock and anyone else who might ask about it, along with the fan who takes the game too seriously. Your ticket to Outland is punched and ready to go on MidPoint.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose. When you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Imagine being able to clear your breakouts fast with a revolutionary new acne treatment that's actually good for your skin. Announcing all-new Proactive Plus, the combination of acne medicine plus ultra-perfecting skincare. Television star Kristen Ritter calls it a miracle.
I love the new Proactive Plus. It's fighting all my breakouts, and my skin is like porcelain.
The results are astonishing. Your skin is not only clear, but smooth and sexy. It's our smartest, fastest, most effective solution ever. And now, new skincare is in every step to balance acne-prone skin with needed hydration and more.
I have to tell you this is different. Just look at my before and after pictures. That doesn't lie.
So grab your phone and dial the number on your screen now, because today, shipping is free. And get 3 free gifts, a $96 value for just $29.95. Call now.
You will love your skin.
Welcome back. I'm Francesca Page, and here's your Newsmax Now update. Again, we are following the latest developments in the Malaysian Airlines crash along Ukraine-Russia border. At around 11:30 a.m. today, Malaysia Airlines tweeted that they had lost contact with flight MH17. The plane is suspected to have been shot down under Ukraine on its way from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. Malaysia's flight MH17 was carrying 295 passengers. Our website, newsmax.com, is reporting that militants, likely pro-Russian separatists, shot down the plane over eastern Ukraine today. Reports say wreckage was around 25 miles from the Russian border. A Ukrainian official says all 280 passengers and 15 crew members have been killed. And round to say President Obama is aware of the downed plane but cannot confirm any details. One can question whether or not this attack had anything to do with the newly imposed sanctions against Russia. Again, we'll continue to monitor this story throughout our broadcasts. Back here in the US, New Jersey police are on high alert as an infamous gang known as the Bloods threatened to kill Jersey City cops. According to the New York Post, the gang is vowing to kill New Jersey police officers and not stop until the National Guard is called out. A memorial for the cop killer featuring balloons, candles and empty liquor bottles was erected shortly after his death. Messages read, "Rest easy and thug in peace." His wife said her husband should have killed more cops. New Jersey and New York Port Authority believe gang members from either states may be traveling into New Jersey to target police. That's your Newsmax Now update. Now back to MidPoint.
All right, it is the place where people are not merely invited, but they are granted immediate citizenship for their passionate social plays, their caring manner of delivery, and every now and then for showing us why people sometimes buy pants 3 sizes too large. Welcome to your daily trip to Outland, where interesting people and their attorneys reside. We have made fun before about what goes on in the state of Florida. Now, I'm not telling anybody anything that's brand new, because there are those along the social media who call the state Florida, as in Flori-DUH. Certainly, it has earned that reputation at times, specifically if you go to Orlando now. And a gentleman named Pastor Pete, who is already in trouble with the law, bonding out on sex assault charges, and did not seem to enjoy the reporter who was following him. Pastor Pete, welcome to Outland.
Did you do these things they accuse you of?
No, I didn't.
Well, what's your side of the story? Please tell us.
I don't have nothing to say right now.
Why are they accusing you of this then?
Well, there's a lot of things involved, insurance, money.
Why are they trying to get insurance money from you?
Well, you live in a place like that, you want to sue somebody.
So you didn't do any of these, and all three women have the same story, though?
Yeah, all three women are friends. So.
I mean, it's pretty. They said that you wanted them to play rape scenes for them, that you were obsessed with having sex that was like rape. Is that true?
No comments.
What about the part where they say that they were afraid you were going to kick them out of the shelter if they didn't have sex with you?
You can believe all you want.
You just think all these three women have the same? That's a song.
Welcome to Outland. Next up to Minnesota. There is an occasion when people need to buy their pants a little larger than usual. Here's an example, and welcome to Outland.
Two men walked in wearing baggy pants and asked the cashier a question that sends her to the back room. While she's gone, one of them grabs an expensive bottle of cognac and drops it down his pant leg in the blink of an eye. Then does it again before the two saunter out of the store. It turns out the men had done the same thing at another liquor store a few minutes earlier. You can see one of them grab two bottles. One goes in his pants while the other goes back on the shelf. He even grabs a bottle of tequila in the box to drop down his pants on the way out. And Marshinka says they hit nearly all 10 liquor stores in Forest Lake that same night.
We are proud to welcome these individuals and many more to Outland, permanent residency from here on out. That's our job. Our job also right now is to give you this Medical Minute with our own professional, Dr. Chauncey Crandall.
If you have high cholesterol, you probably think that taking a statin drug is the best way to lower it. After all, why wouldn't you? Statins are among the most prescribed drugs in the world. But although they are great medications to those who truly need them, other people can lower their cholesterol just by adding certain foods to their diet. Here are the 3 cholesterol-lowering foods that you'll find at your supermarket. Number 1 is oatmeal. Oatmeal is a potent cholesterol-lowering food because oats are a soluble fiber. This means that they absorb the excess cholesterol in your digestive system and carry it out of your body. In addition, oatmeal also helps prevent diabetes and cancer as well. In fact, research shows that eating oatmeal on a regular basis can be as effective as taking a statin. Second, choose salmon over beef and you'll be replacing a food packed with cholesterol-raising saturated fat with one rich in monounsaturated fat. This is the type of good fat that makes salmon taste fattening, but it's not. Salmon is also packed with omega-3 fatty acids, which lower triglycerides, another dangerous blood fat. Third, if it's mid-afternoon and you're craving a snack, grab a handful of almonds. Eating almonds every day lowers your bad LDL cholesterol by about 9%. Almonds are also packed with other vitamins as well, but the best thing about almonds is that they don't taste like a health food. Almonds contain no cholesterol and are also packed with healthy monounsaturated oils. Since most of you are already reading my book, The Simple Heart Cure, I want you to go to chapter 11, in which I tell you about foods that can help you lower your cholesterol. I'm Dr. Chauncey Crandall, and thanks for watching this Health Minute. I'll see you next time.
Get your copy of Dr. Crandall's best-selling book, The Simple Heart Cure, for just $4.95 with this special offer. Go to www.simpleheartbook.com to get your copy today. That's simpleheartbook.com.
Do you sleep too hot while your partner sleeps too cool? Do you struggle to sleep at the right temperature? Now Sleep Number has a solution that's as revolutionary as its beds. Introducing the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer. The amazing Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer allows both of you to select your ideal temperature for better sleep. The Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer works with any mattress brand. It features Active Air technology, which evenly distributes air to heat and cool each side to the temperature you prefer for head-to-toe comfort. Call or click now for this free $50 savings card and catalog.
My husband and I both prefer different temperatures. He likes to have his side of the bed a little bit warmer, and I like to have mine a little bit cooler, and we are finally sleeping better together.
After sleeping on a dual temp layer, I find that I have such a restful night's sleep that when I wake up in the morning, I am energized and I'm ready for the day.
All night long, you can each enjoy sleep at a temperature that perfectly matches what your body needs for comfortable sleep, so you can sleep better together. In a research study, 75% reported poor sleep because of their sleeping temperature. That's because your body's temperature naturally fluctuates at night. But with the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer, you can sleep comfortably warm or cool. And because the revolutionary Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer helps solve an important sleep problem, it was selected as a very innovative product by Good Housekeeping. Remember, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer can be added to any mattress brand, so everyone can enjoy sleeping better at the perfect temperature. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now for a free $50 savings card and catalog with price list. For your peace of mind, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer comes with a 100-night in-home trial. Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now. That's 1-800-317-5283 for your free $50 savings card and catalog.
Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? We choose to go to the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Today, the subcommittee will focus on how Apple effectively shifts billions of dollars in profits offshore, profits that under one section of the tax code should nonetheless be subject to U.S. taxes, but through a complex process avoids those taxes.
It's completely outrageous that Apple has not only dodged full payment of U.S. taxes, but it's managed to evade paying taxes around the world through its convoluted and pernicious strategies.
America remains the land of opportunity, where anybody can start a company and then reap the benefits of working in the American financial system. It involves capitalism, entrepreneurism, working hard to succeed, and then getting hammered by the Internal Revenue Service along with more taxes than anything Caligula might have thought of. Welcome to the new American corporate plan, and welcome back to MidPoint. Welcome into MidPoint, the senior economic consultant for Euro-Pacific Capital and an expert on international finance. John Brown joins us in the studio today. John, thanks for being here.
Good, very good to be here, Ed. Thank you.
Is this really anything new? American companies trying everything they possibly can to go any place they can in order to save being taxed by the Americans?
Well, it's relatively new. It started in about 1982. I mean, when American taxes really got bad relative to the rest of the world. When, after 1971, when Nixon broke the last link of gold to the US dollar, you then got the world's second great inflation. And then a whole series of Democrat governments and pseudo-Republican governments, other than Reagan, but a lot of spending, and therefore big government creeping in, more and more intrusive, costs a lot of money. And so they want more and more taxes. So companies started to make use of the provisions of the US tax code, which, like a lot of exporting countries, encouraged people to be doing business abroad. And one of the rewards was that if you make profits abroad out of other economies, you can keep the money there and then spend it locally on building plant and things like that, instead of bringing it back, getting it taxed, and then having to export it again. And that was pretty reasonable. That was called parking. And the other thing was that if you had more than 25% of the equity of the company was owned abroad, you could actually domicile the country abroad for tax purposes. And that was called inversion. And so as tax rates really grow in America, especially under Obama, with 20 new taxes in Obamacare alone, people have got more and more aggressive. And I mean, Pfizer's bid of over $100 billion for AstraZeneca in England, in Ireland rather, will save them roughly $4 billion a year.
Is it fair to say that certainly the tax code has allowed these companies to do that. You just seem to indicate that there are all sorts of little mechanisms in the tax code that not only allow it, but basically push people towards going elsewhere.
Yes, I don't remember talking to people in the days when it happened, but it certainly allows it. And it most probably was because the politicians wanted to encourage American businesses to spread out, to go abroad, to build plant abroad, to boost American exports and things like that. And now, of course, America has an effective tax rate for corporations of 40%. Well, the world's average is around 23%, the global average. And Britain, for example, has dropped its tax rate from 30% to 21%, 21.6%. Switzerland about 17%. Ireland right down to 12.5%. And so there are huge differentials. I mean, you know, what companies save, big companies, is massive. For each percentage point, Pfizer will save 200 million for every percentage point less tax. And so these are not tax havens like Bermuda or Cayman or something like that, which have zero tax, because there are other things besides tax that are important. Patent protection, physical protection, police, law and order, a legal system that really is very good, and these sort of things are all taken into account, and the local market. So it's really having the highest tax rate in the world at 40% is making American business extremely uncompetitive for actually earning money as opposed to printing it and creating it with a computer. And we've just heard two politicians, one Democrat and one Republican. I mean, I just can't believe my ears, particularly the Republican. All they want is more money off you and me and everything we have to do with companies.
All right, now let's look at where we go from here. It would seem as if the United States has basically opened the door on this one, said go ahead and do it. As to why they're doing this now, why this is all of a sudden becoming news, you mentioned Obamacare. Was that sort of the spark that made these companies think, this is way too much now and we have to do something now?
Yes, I think you're right, Ed. I mean, if I were a director of an international company based in the United States but with wide operations overseas, with all these new taxes and the new mandates yet to come, being delayed illegally by the president.
There's still more to come, which the companies are still concerned about.
Yeah, and so I think, why do I pay all this stuff here when I'm earning money abroad and I can earn money abroad? Why don't I do perfectly legally what I'm allowed to do, either park my overseas profits abroad and leave them there, like Apple has done, perfectly legally, or have an inversion and buy another company which will then form more than 25% of my equity, and legally domicile for tax purposes in a less onerous, a perfectly fair but less onerous tax regime, rather than this outrageous. I mean, you know, America was freedom and enterprise, and it's rapidly becoming the reverse. And enterprise is dropping, and the Fed keeps pumping more money in, created out of nowhere, and wonders why enterprise doesn't take off.
Got about a minute or so left here. So instead of just the politicians sitting there and pontificating, what else are they looking to do? What can they do at this point to stop what they themselves started?
Oh, absolutely. There are two overriding factors which would sort America out completely. One is to have a flat tax and no loopholes whatsoever, but a flat tax. And secondly is to have single-term politicians. So you get rid of these careerists who are in there just to be re-elected. Populists, they'd be in there out of duty, and I would frankly halve the pay and allowances for all of Congress and even the running of Congress. Why do we need inch-and-a-half hitch carpets everywhere when there are perfectly adequate oak floorboards underneath? I mean, all these great extravagances, they line themselves in great glory, and you and I and every corporation in America suffers for it.
I'm writing this down. Hold on a sec. I want to get down to carpet, and I want to get, down to everything else that they're going on.
The pay is so enormous that they have a retirement policy that gives them full pay for the rest of their lives in retirement. What does the average American get? A pittance compared to that.
John, unfortunately, we were all out of time, but we're going to have you back. We need to put a list together here, and we're going to start going after the politicians on this. You and I will never escape taxes again as long as we possibly live. We better be careful of the IRS from here. John,
I don't want to escape if it's 25%.
If it's 25%, it's easy. You're right about that. Okay. Coming next up, to some it may have seemed like a bad movie, but let's be serious for a moment. What happened in Stockton, California Wednesday was all too real. It is the subject of today's news call as MidPoint continues, where we question everything.
Can you really lose weight without changing your lifestyle? LaToya Q did. In fact, in just 5 months, she lost nearly 2 pounds a week without changing the way she dieted or exercised.
I lost 36 pounds and I went down 4 dress sizes.
Like so many people, LaToya didn't want to change her lifestyle to lose weight. Instead, she decided to take America's #1 selling diet pill, Lipozene.
People kept asking me, are you you have to be exercising. You're really you just don't want to tell us what you're doing. I was like, no, I don't have time to go to a gym. I just took Lipozene and I started seeing results immediately.
Lipozene has now sold over 20 million bottles. That's because Lipozene really works. And to prove it, we conducted our very own double-blind clinical study where all we asked people to do was take Lipozene. And by just taking Lipozene, they lost weight. But here's where it gets really exciting. These people were not asked to change their diet or exercise. And 78% of the weight they lost was pure body fat. Not water, fat.
I'm almost back down to my high school weight, so I'm really loving that.
And for even faster results, you can try Lipozene with moderate diet and exercise.
Feels great to have a six-pack. I didn't think I would have it at my age.
I lost 7 inches off of my waist and I lost 2 dress sizes and I feel amazing.
Now you can join the millions of people who have lost weight with Lipozene by trying it risk-free for only $29.95. Lipozene is guaranteed to help you lose weight or your money back.
Lipozene, it works.
But wait. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll double your order absolutely free. Plus, we'll even pay for your shipping. But that's still not all. To celebrate selling over 20 million bottles of Lipozene, the company will give you a free bottle of Metabo Up with your order. That's a $20 value free. But you must call right now because this exclusive free offer is not available in stores.
Call 1-800-509-9436. That's 1-800-509-9436.
Hi, I'm Mike Reagan. If you're a senior or baby boomer, you may be missing out on some important information. Tens of millions of boomers are set to retire, yet many don't know that how you file your Social Security can dramatically change the amount of money you collect. That's why Newsmax created a special report offering you the best strategies to maximize your Social Security benefits. For example, this report reveals a weird trick that could help you add up to $152,000 to your Social Security payouts. It also shows how some qualifying recipients can add up to $1,000 to their monthly payments. To get your copy with our free offer, along with 7 additional money-making booklets, simply go online. Newsmax says this report is a critical resource for anyone over the age of 50. So go to our website today and find out if you qualify to add extra money to your Social Security. Remember, it's your money. You deserve the most back in your retirement.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him opening his own clothing store at the age of 18? 1 in 138,000. Excited to be a part of pop culture, he packed for the big city. The odds of finding someone to invest in his vision? 1 in 4.5 million. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
There is a concern in this country when it comes to local law enforcement agencies. Many say they are absolutely gathering much too heavy a firepower. There's talk about having armed guards. There's talk about having armored cars and also larger weaponry in order to take care of the local population. There are those who say it simply is too much. It's not necessary. However, what happened Wednesday in Stockton, California, proves that many times this local law enforcement is outgunned by the criminals themselves. And sometimes they need all the firepower they can get. It is the addition. It is the focus of this news call.
A bank robbery, a highway chase, and a flurry of gunfire all ended with this SUV riddled with bullets.
Sound like firecrackers at first.
I could see the car getting blasted. I can see all the little sparks and everything off the car. And actually, there was a police car right in front of our house shooting at that direction.
When it was all over, Stockton police led one person away from the vehicle. The SUV was stopped at Thornton and Auto. Police say it had been stolen from a bank employee.
Witnesses describe a terrifying scene playing out right in front of the bank.
And when that door opened, there were 3 females and 3 males, and they had the guns to these ladies' heads. And as the women were coming out, they had their hands up, and they were just petrified. But the cops were so close. They were like 5 feet away from these guys, and they could not get a shot.
Because of the hostages?
Because of the hostages.
The officers were just telling them to put their hands up and freeze and surrender, but they didn't cooperate.
Stockton police say the suspect stole a car from a bank employee and drove off with the 3 adult female hostages.
Within a few blocks, police say the thieves shot one hostage, a bank employee, who either jumped or was thrown from the car. Soon after, the second hostage was ejected. Police chased the suspects for nearly an hour, all the while taking heavy gunfire.
The suspects had mass amounts of ammunition, either taped to or strapped to their bodies. The gunfire on our officers was relentless.
14 patrol cars were hit with gunfire. The chief says there was an attempt to ambush officers. Luckily, it was spotted by one police officer who fired on the suspect vehicle. They took off again. 2 of the hostages, both bank employees, were either thrown out or jumped out of the vehicle and injured. They're at the hospital, expected to recover. Tires were shot out on the suspect vehicle. That's how they got it to stop eventually. Then the chief said the suspects did something that is particularly violent to the last hostage.
Let's yet again opened fire, and there was a gunfire exchange. It also preliminarily appears that one of the gunmen used the third and final hostage, the bank customer from earlier, as a shield.
Later in the pursuit, a second bank hostage was either thrown or jumped from the vehicle. Police say both women will survive. Officers tailed the SUV from Stockton to Lodi and back to Stockton while constantly being fired upon by the suspects.
Was not just dangerous upon our police officers, but they were shooting other houses, other vehicles were shot that were not involved at all. So what I can say is they were trying to kill.
In order to end the hour-long dangerous pursuit, police shot out the SUV's tires. That's when the suspects engaged police in a shootout, firing countless rounds of ammunition at each other.
Here are pictures of that police pursuit that lasted close to an hour. One of the hostages was thrown from the SUV and taken to the hospital with a gunshot wound.
We had 2 suspects shot inside the vehicle, and they transported to hospitals. We had another suspect who's deceased inside the vehicle, along with another person who's deceased that we're trying to figure out if that was the third hostage.
From the air, you could see police move in to arrest one of the alleged bank robbers. From the ground, there was no question someone was not getting out of that stolen car alive.
Misty Holt Singh, a mother and a wife seen here smiling, lost her life after being taken hostage at the Bank of the West on Thornton Road. Friends and family of the Franklin High graduate wrote sympathy messages on Misty's Facebook page. They read, "Misty, you're an awesome woman, and my heart goes out to you and your family." And another, "I can't believe this. R.I.P. Misty."
Police have now identified the only surviving member of the alleged shooters, Jamie Ramos of Stockton, California, and the police are saying that he is a gang member. According to one of the spokesmen for the Stockton Police Department, quote, "In my 18 years, I have never seen this level of violence. There was just a complete disregard for human life." Next hour, when you get into your car, hit the road. Be careful the road doesn't hit back. That and a whole lot more coming up right here on MidPoint.
Do you have questions about Medicare? Are you new to Medicare? Are you wondering about your choices? With over 30 years of Medicare experience, United Healthcare Medicare Solutions can help. Call now to learn more about plans available to you, including AARP Medicare plans, or to get this free Medicare Made Clear answer guide. It was created to help make the different parts of Medicare easier to understand. Medicare has 2 main parts, Parts A and B, to help cover a lot of your expenses, like hospital care and doctor visits. But they still won't cover all of your costs. United Healthcare has the information you need to help you be better prepared when making Medicare decisions. So call toll-free now or visit us online. Are you looking for something nice and easy, like a single plan that combines Medicare Parts A and B with medical and drug coverage? Well, a Medicare Advantage plan can give you doctor, hospital, and prescription drug coverage all in one plan. Maybe you'd like help paying for your prescriptions. Consider a Part D prescription drug plan. These plans can help reduce the cost of your prescription drugs. Call now to learn more about what United Healthcare offers, like AARP Medicare plans. We'll send you Medicare Made Clear free. One of the many ways United Healthcare can help guide you through your Medicare choices. If you or someone you love is new to Medicare, retiring, losing employers' retiree health benefits, or simply looking for answers to Medicare questions, like what's the difference between Parts A, B, C, and D, call toll-free now or visit us online and download your guide free at answerstomedicare.com/TV. It's full of useful information to help you understand your Medicare choices, and it's only from United Healthcare Medicare Solutions. Call right now or visit us online.
There is a major personal battle brewing in the Republican Party between two men who might be heading for the White House. After they finish verbally pounding each other in a nasty spat the party does not need if it seeks to succeed in 2016. There's a major issue already under our feet and under our wheels here in America, because without some major movement, improvement, and fast, that road you're driving on may not be as friendly as it once was. And there is nothing Mickey Mouse about what's happening at Disney World and other theme parks, a safety issue that has the entire theme park industry scrambling to take action before their reputations are tarnished further. No one covers the news like we do. The fastest 3 hours of news continues as we question everything for Thursday, July 17th, 2014. There could be perhaps no more polarizing figure in politics today than Rand Paul, for even those in his own party are not exactly in full support of his various ideas, especially when it comes to foreign policy. That's part of the discourse and a lot more right after Francesca Page deals this edition of Newsmax Now.
Welcome back. I'm Francesca Page, and here's your Newsmax Now update. New reports say President Obama is speaking with Russian President Vladimir Putin about the Malaysian plane that crashed in eastern Ukraine. The White House says it cannot confirm or deny that the two presidents spoke about flight MH17, but the Associated Press is reporting that sources inside the Kremlin says Putin and Obama discussed the plane crash during their phone call. Now these are some of the latest images from the wreckage of Malaysia flight MH17. As you can see here, there is not much left of that aeroplane. Everyone on board was killed. Crews continue to investigate the crash. And Reuters is also reporting that Air France, along with other airlines, are announcing they will avoid Ukrainian airspace. Meanwhile, President Obama has slapped Russia with even more economic sanctions. The new sanctions come after Moscow failed to stop the ongoing fighting between the Ukraine and pro-Russian separatists.
We're freezing the assets of several Russian defense companies, and we are blocking new financing of some of Russia's most important banks and energy companies.
European leaders have also ordered stricter economic sanctions against Russia. The increased economic pressure is designed to end the insurgency in eastern Ukraine that is widely believed to be backed by Russia. Obama says he wants a diplomatic solution, but Russia has done nothing to stop the conflict. And the family of a stunt pilot who died during a Northern California air show is suing the federal government for $20 million. According to the Sacramento Bee, the 70-year-old pilot's family filed 3 wrongful death claims yesterday. The lawsuit claims emergency crews did not respond fast enough after the crash. An autopsy showed the pilot died while trapped in the place, not from the crash itself. And now back to the Malaysia airline crash. We learned that the plane was shot down at approximately 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time today. Reports say the surface-air missile launched by pro-Russian militants may be responsible for the crash. But now the self-proclaimed Prime Minister of Donetsk is saying Ukrainian Air Force is responsible for shooting down that plane. Reuters is now reporting that at least 23 of the passengers on board were US citizens. That's your Newsmax Now update. Now back to MidPoint.
First-class infrastructure attracts first-class jobs. And right now, our investments in transportation are lagging the rest of the world. If Washington were working the way it's supposed to, Congress would be fixing that. We'd be investing in the things that help America bring more good jobs to our shores. Instead, here's what's going on in Washington. There's something called the Highway Trust Fund. I suspect this crew is familiar with it. It helps states support transportation projects. If Congress fails to fund it, it runs out of money. That could put nearly 700,000 jobs at risk, including more than 17,000 right here in Virginia. More than 100,000 active projects across the country. Projects where workers, as we speak, are paving roads and rebuilding bridges and modernizing our transit system. Those projects would be slowed or stopped. And some states have already had to put some projects on hold because they don't trust Congress to get its act together.
As often happens in Washington, the sexier items get all the media play and always are the focal point for political press conferences. It's what's under the surface that often comes back to bite the government and then the taxpayers when we least expect it. And that's the best place to start with the issue of roads you drive on every day. Those roads that are falling apart faster than the ideas for an upbeat musical rendition of Game of Thrones. That and a few more cautionary tales as we welcome into MidPoint former head of the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, a gentleman who helped shape policies pertaining to transportation safety and security. Brigham McCown joins us today. Brigham, thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be with you.
Brigham, we are going to get onto the roads, but we do have the breaking news that is happening right now in the Ukraine, and I understand that you have some aviation experience, and you certainly flew planes in the military. Just brief us quickly on your experience.
Sure, absolutely. So, Ed, thanks again for having me on the show. I have about 30 years of naval aviator and Navy experience, and part of that time was flying in Desert Storm. I've flown helicopters and airplanes and served on major staffs coordinating aviation policy and defense of U.S. airspace and participating in numerous conflicts. So, have that background, and also senior executive U.S. Department of Transportation.
So let's look at what happened here. We're talking about an aircraft, a Boeing 777, that was at approximately 32,000 feet. We have seen some of the pictures from the site, and it is complete devastation. There are pieces over a wide debris field here, and there are reports, again, they're very conflicting at this point, that it may or may not have been a ground-to-air missile here. Just judging a little bit from what we've heard here, 33,000 feet, and knowing the missiles that are currently used in this type of warfare and in these type of instances, is that something that makes sense to you, that it could be shot down?
Yeah, the aircraft can be shot down by a surface-to-air missile. However, that being said, when we're speaking about the Ukrainian conflict, the Ukrainian separatists do have the ability to engage aircraft and helicopters, but only from a lower altitude. The shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles have a missile envelope that does not exceed 10,000 feet. So in order to shoot down something at altitude, it would have to come from a radar-controlled, much more sophisticated surface-to-air missile battery.
If we were looking again at a missile that struck the plane, would that not indicate that the plane may come down in larger pieces instead of the smaller pieces that we're seeing? Because again, I'm not a technician here, I just play one on TV, but some of the experience that I've seen in many of this, if there was some sort of an explosion or some sort of a catastrophic failure of the aircraft, that may also then add to what may be pieces, smaller pieces instead of larger chunks coming out of the sky.
And that's very good insight, and it all depends on the crucial question of whether or not there was a direct hit or whether there was a glancing blow from a surface-to-air missile. So a direct hit could have caused catastrophic failure. You would expect to see the fuselage or the engines come apart in much more graphic type of situation. Keep in mind that on a 777, a lot of gasoline, jet fuel in the wings. However, a minor hit or a glancing blow could have struck certain aspects of the aircraft that would have made it uncontrollable. This is a fly-by-wire aircraft. It is, it's a very safe airplane. It's been a big triumph for Boeing. They're major wide body since the 747. But the way that it's controlled, if certain aspects are damaged, then the plane becomes uncontrollable, yet appears to remain intact until crash.
And the one thing that people have not really talked about much, this is Malaysia Airlines, and this is the same airline with the aircraft that is still missing over the Indian Ocean. So we have two aircrafts from the very same company that are downed under very mysterious circumstances. So it would lead one to wild speculation. But again, we simply do not have any facts at this point, so we're simply not going to sit here and speculate. But I want to thank you, first of all, as we get into the few minutes we have left here to talk about why we had you on, to at least give us some of that experience, because this is going to be a story that we need to follow all day long. Let me turn us now to the Highway Trust Fund here. As I mentioned at the top of the show, the infrastructure in America is completely breaking down. Roads everywhere are just coming apart in pieces. So what is it sitting here right now with the Highway Trust Fund? Why is it so important that this is refunded, and so important that we get more money into this, right away, if yesterday, if not even sooner?
Well, the Highway Trust Fund is something, as the President pointed out in the clip that you've mentioned, helps fund our infrastructure projects. There's several issues here at play, and nothing is ever as simple as it seems in Washington, D.C. It's a gorgeous day here in Washington, but it's a lot more complex than that. Number one, Highway Trust Fund has been around for a long time. It was originally designed to build the Eisenhower interstate system. That system's been built, yet we keep funding the road projects the same way we always have. States get about 95 cents on the dollar back from what they put into it. What they put into it is based on roughly an 18.5 cents per gallon gas tax that has not been adjusted since the 90s. The system is outdated. It's been broken for a long period of time. But the roads haven't fallen apart overnight. And we need more capital infused into the roadways. The breakdown is who's going to pay for it and how. And frankly, 6 years into the President's administration, this is hardly a crisis overnight in the making.
But let's look at the tax issue here, which you brought up, 18.4 cents per gallon gas tax. This seems to me, and we've had a lot of discussions with this from our automobile experts over the last couple of months here, that it has to come from here. The only way to really start pumping money into this is Americans are going to pay more gas tax. You said things are not as simple as that. Is it as simple as we're going to see greater taxes on gasoline?
We have to fund the highway system, and obviously concrete roads, bridges cost a lot more today than they did in the 1990s. The states also levy a per gallon gas tax. In most cases, that far exceeds what the feds get at 18.4 cents. The 18.4, though, has been diverted to pay for a lot of other issues. I used to be the general counsel of the trucking agency at DOT. They get almost $500 million a year, and a lot of that comes from the Highway Trust Fund to talk about commercial motor vehicle safety. We're diverting funds to pay for high-speed rail. We've got to look at funding those programs, but we can't be robbing the fund that is made to pay for roads and bridges, number one. Number two, the debate in Washington centers around users versus who should pay, and that's been one of where the breakdowns have occurred, and that's the tolling versus the free roads. Americans expect roads. They expect to be able to drive on them. Like most of us don't like tolls, and that's where it's all gotten bogged down in policy, Ed.
We only have 12 legislative days left until Congress takes a month-long recess here. The trust fund runs out of money on August 1st. Are we looking at another government shutdown here, something serious?
You know, I don't think so, because although the politicians can't agree on how to fund this, they've done what politicians in Congress do a lot of times. They want to kick the can further down the road. The House has a proposal to plus up the Highway Trust Fund by $10 billion by taking money out of the general fund to kind of float it along. Senate's expected to agree to that proposal, but that will only give us, through the end of the year. These issues and questions on how to fund our priority programs, have been undecided for 10 years. And unlike a lot of partisan issues, roads and bridges really aren't a Democratic or a Republican issue. It's a local issue, and it's something we all need to get behind.
I got about 60 seconds left. I did want to get your opinion on this. The Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee has a vote on the Keystone Pipeline this week. How big is this vote?
I think it's going to be a pretty large vote because there are a number of very vulnerable Senate Democrats on the conservative side that are pro-energy. Mary Landrieu is one in particular. They would like to see Keystone make it through. It has become the poster child for the off-oil agenda and the environmental movement. It is, frankly, something that from a safety perspective should be approved, and we'll see what happens.
Would you say that it's more, there are some who say that it is a symbolic vote coming up this week. You think it's more than symbolic?
I think it's largely a symbolic vote, but if I were the president, I think I would rather have Congress take it out of his hands because the president is stuck in the middle between the unions on one side who want to build Keystone and the environmental movement on the other that is opposing all new oil and gas infrastructure projects.
A president stuck in the middle. I don't think we've ever seen that before in any administration in our lifetimes. I'm absolutely stunned to hear you say that. Brigham McCown, thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you so much for your insight into what may or may not be happening, and certainly the story that we're following right now in the Ukraine. Again, I thank you, and let's please do it again.
Ed, thanks so much for having me on the show. Appreciate
Pleasure.
it.
Brigham, have a great day. Next up, the backbiting battle that is threatening to engulf the Republican Party, and why there is real concern at a few major amusement parks over the safety of your children. It's coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day, without fail, we question everything.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose when you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Now on Newsmax TV, Ted Cruz is hated by official Washington, but is still a Tea Party favorite. Find out what the pundits are saying about his presidential plans and how Texas might pick the next president. Go now to Newsmax TV.
What he's trying to do is fashion a new doctrine, and I think he would call it the doctrine of restraint, not isolationism. And if you think about it and step back a little bit, what he's doing is he's pulling a Bill Clinton, which is a third way, triangulating between, in this case, Obama and Cheney to a certain extent, saying, and I think the key line in what he wrote here is, strength doesn't mean you always have war.
America loves a good argument. We're drawn to verbal fights between people faster than we're drawn to offers of 10-cent cheeseburgers. But members of the Republican Party seeking to get back into complete control come 2016 are not all thrilled with a snarky spat going on between two of their top contenders for the presidency. That and much more. Let's welcome into MidPoint Republican strategist, pollster, president and CEO of the polling company. She has worked with such notable politicians as Fred Thompson, Jack Kemp, Mike Pence, Newt Gingrich. Kellyanne Conway joins the fray. Kelly, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Ed.
Kelly, let's start out with a really simple question. Why is Rick Perry being so mean to Rand Paul?
Oh, I think Rand Paul is a big boy. He can take it, and he has acquitted himself very well on this very issue this week. I like when Republicans strike back at each other because they're supposed to be the pro-competition, pro-free market party, and that should extend to its exchange of ideas and certainly its elections. But Rand Paul did not allow Rick Perry's presumptions that he's an isolationist and charges that he's the wrong way on foreign policy. Rand Paul did not allow those to go unanswered. He went to Politico and wrote an op-ed in response and essentially said, look, I, Rand Paul, believe that the first duty of this nation, of the federal government, is to protect the nation, and that includes having armaments, that includes having a well-heeled military. What he doesn't support is going back into Iraq, is sending our sons and daughters to war. He says the bar for sending our sons and daughters into war ought to be higher. And I think if people are just going to throw around pejoratives like isolationists, then they really ought to reevaluate and listen very closely to Rand Paul saying. I think the fear for many neocons and many establishment Republicans is frankly that the public is more on the Rand Paul side of foreign policy than on their side.
Is it fair to say that Rand Paul is taking great advantage right now of the big government look at President Obama right now, and that specifically is where his foreign policy is based, in direct opposition to that entire big government scene?
Well, perhaps. It definitely is in opposition to what the president has done in Syria. For example, Senator Paul makes clear that he would stop arming the rebels in Syria, and that Governor Perry, whom I like very much and respect as governor of Texas, he didn't even address that in attacking Rand Paul's foreign policy. And so Senator Paul says he would not be arming these rebels in Syria, and that he would make sure that ISIS, which of course is spreading across Iraq now, stops also. And he just feels that we spent a decade, to read his words, we spent a decade arming or training the Iraqi military, and when the enemies came, they basically took the uniforms off and laid down their arms. So when 71% of Americans tell the NBC Wall Street Journal pollsters that they think the cost of the Iraq war was too high, at least somebody needs to articulate that. Whether they're right or wrong, that's the way they feel. That's their opinion, having lived with the Iraq war for over a decade.
Kellyanne, is there a feeling, and I get this from talking to some friends of mine in the party and out of the party as well, people who look at strategy, there seems to be a feeling that there are some people who feel that Rand Paul is an easy target and they can go after him, and this guy maybe does not want to fight back as much as others might expect, but aren't they really underestimating him in many ways?
Well, I would underestimate Rand Paul at my peril. I think the guy is going to go farther and faster than people realize for any number of reasons. I mean, frankly, he and Elizabeth Warren are going to have a very similar populist, libertarian reach to organizations and individuals who don't necessarily support your party type of message. Rand Paul's message is just right and Elizabeth Warren's is wrong. But it's a very similar outreach. On this matter, I think that Politico put it best when they called it the Rand Paul pile-on, showing how many Republicans came out of the woodwork to go out of their way to attack him. And I thought it was pretty impolitic of them to do it, but again, it shows their fear of his possible reach. I think he's organizing in all these states, and he is hiring some really great talent in some of the earlier states in Iowa and New Hampshire. He's done that recently. And I just think after you've beaten the establishment the way Rand Paul or Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio or Mike Lee have done, you're less afraid of the establishment. You really don't owe them anything. They were against you winning in the first place. You beat them handily. And this is a man who very much believes in his message. But I think to dismiss anybody as an isolationist or as a Tea Party Republican or as a pro-life zealot done by another Republican is really poor form.
He's really more an anti-interventionist, isn't he, at this point?
Well, I don't know if he's anti-interventionist is probably more accurate if you read his words than, quote, isolationist. By the way, I don't think a U.S. Senator, let alone a President of the United States, could be an isolationist if he or she wanted to. And clearly, Rand Paul does not want, and none of us want to be isolationist. But non-intervention really means let's think this through before we go and get involved in every single skirmish. I actually think Rand Paul's major opposition here is starting to be Senator Marco Rubio. So Governor Perry got into the fray, but Marco Rubio seems to follow the John McCain, Lindsey Graham wing of the Republican thought right now in terms of intervention, and Rand Paul is out there with his own set of thoughts, just basically echoing what many Americans say, which is, look, we have a primary duty to protect ourselves and our borders and our security. But should we be involved every single time with armaments, with troops on the ground? That's the whole point. He says that the bar should be higher before we send our sons and daughters to war. Many Americans agree with that.
If we look then at what Rick Perry is doing right now, is this dangerous for Rick Perry? And also then, in your opinion, what does this do to split the party as these two are constantly fighting? Because as we hear Perry, he talks and speaks out against isolationism, takes that complete isolationist shot at Rand Paul. Disheartening to hear fellow Republicans such as Rand Paul suggest our nation should ignore what's happening in Iraq. I mean, he's gone off on these and other diatribes. How dangerous is it for him and for the party?
Well, first of all, Rand Paul's not ignoring what's going on in Iraq. I can't imagine who in the Republican Party is. But
other than Rick Perry, who thinks that he's ignoring it. You're right. Yeah.
And I think that's unfair to say that anybody's an isolationist or ignoring it. It's unfair. However, I actually applaud the Perry-Paul split because it's the strength of a diverse party. It's the strength of a party that welcomes all kinds of thoughts. I mean, Ed, could you or any of your viewers name for me 5 prominent pro-life female Democrats in this country? Probably not. 4, 3, 2, 1. You can't name any. The boll weevil Democrats, the pro-life Democrats, mostly the pro-Second Amendment Democrats, the blue dog Democrats, they've been driven from the party. That party is really very myopic in its ideology and its exchange of ideas. The Republican Party, on the other hand, is very diverse in its exchange of ideas, and I think the Rick Perry, Rand Paul dust-up over foreign policy is the latest example of that. I feel like it should be welcome because the Republican Party too often talks about the silly electability. Who can win? Who can win? And of course, those people who can win, Bob Dole, John McCain, Mitt Romney, all lose. The question is not who can win. The question is who can lead. And the sub-question is, how do Republican primary and caucus voters and the broader electorate surely define leadership? They don't know what electability is. They shouldn't much care. But they know leadership when they see it and when they don't. And I welcome a full exchange of ideas like the one we're having right now in foreign policy.
Well, let me stop right there. I was going to go on to young conservatives and libertarians here, which are apparently Rand Paul's base, and see what else he gets. But wait a minute. You hit foreign policy here. There are those who are saying, forget the economy, stupid. Really, what will happen come 2016 is that foreign policy trumps everything when it comes to electing presidents, and that's why this is so important. Would you agree or disagree?
Yes, and that I do agree that foreign policy would be an incredibly important issue. It always is, even if it doesn't show up in the polls at more than 3 or 4%. That doesn't mean Americans don't care about it. It means that when asked in a poll, Americans responded the way you asked them to respond, which is what's the most important issue to you and your family, or what's the most important issue for Congress and the president to address. And there you see the economy, number 1, jobs, somewhere around there, but healthcare on the rise because of Obamacare, and even education, particularly for women, on the rise. But foreign policy is a congenitally important issue to Americans, particularly to early voters in the Republican primary and caucuses. Why? Because we're nothing if we're not protecting ourselves. People, there, to go back to an earlier question you posed, Ed, is exactly in opposition to what's happened during the Obama years. I mean, for God's sake, what exactly is the Obama doctrine? Can anybody tell me what that is? And so if you think about the Obama doctrine and you think about the weakness in foreign policy, the fact that we are not respected around the world the way we once were, and the fact that the president himself doesn't seem much interested in this, quote, concept of American exceptionalism, there is an opening for a strong, robust, unafraid leader in the Republican Party to come forward with their own view on foreign policy. It is going to be an important, but it's also wrapped up in border security, it's wrapped up in terrorism, it's wrapped up in our standing in the world, and it's wrapped up in, I want to make this very clear, if you look at the polls, it's also wrapped up in something fairly new to the American public, which is the price tag of all this intervention worth it? People are looking at that through green eyeshadow, not just through a security equation.
All right, then 10 seconds. Rick Perry, Rand Paul, who's winning the battle now in public opinion?
They both have their adherents. No question that there are people, the classic neocon Cheney view, of foreign policy is the Rick Perry view. And then Rand Paul is really tapping into a nerve among many Americans, not all of just whom are under the age of 30, by the way, who are fatigued by war and intervention and want to see us step back a little bit from that.
There you go. Kellyanne Conway, an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Let's do it again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Still ahead, why is there some serious shaking in the cartoon boots of the folks at several major amusement park companies today? And this is not just the Disney folks as well. It's coming up right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.
Pat Boone here with a word about bank safety. Do you think your money is safe in the bank? Don't bank on it. A generation ago, bank accounts felt secure and they paid interest. This encouraged the virtue of thrift and saving. But today, bank accounts pay virtually nothing, and they've shifted from low risk to high risk. For example, did you know your money deposited in most U.S. banks could be subject to limited withdrawal and even confiscation? Oh yes, and that's just the first of 19 risks explained in a new white paper entitled Don't Bank on It. You still think your bank deposits are safe? You better get this vital new Don't Bank on It white paper now. Call the number on the screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, the gold standard. Learn how simple it is to become your own banker today.
Any flashlight can throw a beam, but not even this floodlight is bright enough to light up a room. Now there's the Torchlight from Bell & Howell, the high-tech portable light that's really big on brightness. Look, ordinary flashlights just have a narrow beam, but the Torchlight has a brighter, wider beam that brilliantly lights up the entire room. Even when the power goes out, you won't be left in the dark because its 28 ultra-bright LEDs give you over 100,000 hours of bright, reliable light. It's like having nature's own sunlight at your fingertips. Its high-powered magnetic base lets you securely attach it to any metal surface to give you a steady, bright light that brilliantly lights up your entire work area. It's like having an extra pair of hands. It's so powerful it can lift up to 2.5 pounds. And with its bright light, there's no easier way to quickly pick up dropped nails and screws. And look, the Torchlight is also a flashlight. Its 5 white LEDs give you a clear, bright light to easily see wherever you go. The sturdy base keeps the Torchlight in place exactly where you want it, and the articulating arm has 6 preset positions that let you tilt the light an incredible 180 degrees to give you total lighting coverage. Use it at your computer, as a table lamp, or to light up those dark, unlit areas. Better yet, with the built-in hook, you can hang it anywhere and rotate it 360 degrees to give you light wherever you need it, while its rugged construction makes it impact-resistant and weatherproof too. And now the Bell & Howell Torchlight is yours for just $10. But wait, call now and we'll double your order. That's 2 for the price of 1. Just pay separate processing and handling. Order your Torchlight now.
To order your Torchlight and receive a second one free, have your credit card ready and call toll-free 1-800-936-0400. That's 1-800-936-0400.
Welcome back to MidPoint, everybody. Ed Berliner, Francesca Page, John Bachman joins us on set right now. We're following the latest developments in the Malaysian Airlines crash along the Ukraine-Russian border. We've talked in the last couple of hours, some folks who have military experience, airline experience as well, who are telling us a little bit about what they know. John, I know you've been following the story all day. Tell us what you know.
Yeah, we just heard from the president not too long ago addressing the situation, but not giving a lot of details about what he knows at this point, only that his advisors are in constant contact with folks on the ground in eastern Ukraine here, of course. The real concern, as I'm sure you've addressed here, is what, if anything, did Russia know, Vladimir Putin know here, and what was used specifically to down this airliner? Those are some of the questions we're hoping to get answers to. But
if
also,
indeed the aircraft was downed by something, which
if
we
it was
still
downed
don't know.
by something, but that the reports may be pointing in that direction right now. Other than that, you know, the Associated Press now, some folks, reporters are on the ground. One of their journalists from the AP counted 22 bodies at the crash site, which is just 40 kilometers, 25 miles from the Russian border. So, you know, real carnage here.
We should point out, too, that this air corridor is a very popular air corridor that is used here. It goes over the Ukraine airspace. And The problem with it is when you get into any sort of a war situation is if you deviate by even the slightest amount at that point, you have ground forces that are watching, you have radar that is watching, someone will look and they will see something that doesn't look quite right. They may see it as perhaps being a Russian aircraft, an enemy aircraft, if you will. So there is still, this is an area of the country that is very volatile at this point, and it's a hair trigger.
Yeah, amongst everything else, the geography of this is a huge factor, obviously, and I would say that, you know, I agree with you. Definitely, it's definitely a hair trigger.
Yeah, and fingers are already being pointed in a different direction. Some of the Russian sources out there are blaming the Ukrainian forces and vice versa. And of course, this is the vacuum that gets filled with information as we continue to look for more substantial reports coming out of the area. But one of the things too that we have to look at here is Malaysia Airlines.
Yes.
You know, the company itself here, they're still trying to figure out who's going to pay for the search and still looking for that last plane that went missing here. And now there's another Malaysia Airlines flight. And regardless of what the circumstances might be surrounding the disappearance, obviously a very traumatic situation for the company as well.
Well, nature abhors a vacuum here. We all want to know immediately what's happening when anything happens like this. I think we have to look at Malaysia Airlines now because we still don't know what happened to the aircraft that disappeared over the Indian Ocean. We have no idea. I don't care. It didn't fall into a black hole, as some people have indicated already in some of these ridiculous stories that are out there. No one really knows. We have the same company here and another mysterious incident here. We now have to start looking at, is this a concerted effort against a specific airline company?
Of course, and the question now becomes how much of this is coincidence and how much of this is left to fate and how much of this is planned strategically, and where the blame is going to go. And of course, we're already hearing this blame game that John was discussing between obviously the self-proclaimed Minister of Donetsk and, you know, the Ukrainian Air Force, and we have to see if that's going to culminate to anything at this stage.
And the thing that we have to keep in mind, we just had a guest on who knows a little bit about commercial airlines. We still have to consider that the missiles that are there are not usually the kind of missiles that can go 33,000 feet in the air.
No.
That's something that needs to be taken into account because, as people are saying, the different ministers are talking about it, we don't know.
We don't have enough information.
But there's just, as far as what he would indicate, unless there was a certain surface-to-air missile that is there that can go that high in the air, it's not the sort of weaponry that they would certainly have on hand at that point for what is basically a ground skirmish.
And as we talk about that, you know, again, we try to avoid as much speculation as possible, but nearly impossible to avoid that completely. But the AP does report the plane appeared to have broken up before impact, and the burning wreckage included body parts and belongings of passengers scattered over a wide area. So again, that would signify or indicate, at least potentially, that there's something happened to the plane before it, you know, touchdown.
Indeed. All right. Well, I know that you're going to follow this as well. Francesca, you'll follow it as well. And we will continue to keep you updated on this because, again, the information is coming in moment by moment here. The various individuals from the companies are speaking right now. The various individuals from the countries are speaking right now. And, again, no one really knows. So we'll wait until we get some facts and keep reporting it. Now, let's stop down for a moment and get this American Moment.
December 17, 1903, was a calm day at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, when two brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, readied their aircraft for a demonstration that would change history forever. Their initial flight only lasted for 120 feet, but it was enough to eventually pave a pathway to the stars. Although the brothers were not the first to build and fly experimental aircraft, they were the first ones to invent the mechanical controls that made fixed-wing, powered flight possible. But that proved both a blessing and a curse to an industry in its infancy. The Wright brothers' practice of demanding excessive fees for use of their patents and their litigious nature had an immediate and negative effect on the growth, safety, and improvement of the new industry of aviation. In 1917, Congress, recognizing air power would play a vital role in the upcoming war, passed legislation which, in effect, reduced the Wright brothers' royalty of $1,000 per plane to $200. The reduced fees sparked an explosion of growth and innovation in the new industry. Although initially outraged, the Wright family quickly realized the lower fees made it possible for more airplane manufacturers to enter the field. With more manufacturers came more planes, and with more planes came more royalties. Soon after, their royalties had exceeded $2 million in an age before income tax. Soon, America was leading the air revolution. In 1927, young aviator Charles Lindbergh departed New York's Roosevelt Field for a 3,600-mile, 33-and-a-half-hour transatlantic journey to Le Bourget Field in Paris, France. The dream of the Wright brothers had become a reality, and America had led the way thanks to Orville and Wilbur Wright. For Newsmax TV, I'm Bill Curtis.
Do you sleep too hot while your partner sleeps too cool? Do you struggle to sleep at the right temperature? Now Sleep Number has a solution that's as revolutionary as its beds. Introducing the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer. The amazing Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer allows both of you to select your ideal temperature for better sleep. The Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer works with any mattress brand. It features Active Air technology, which evenly distributes air to heat and cool each side to the temperature you prefer for head-to-toe comfort. Call or click now for this free $50 savings card and catalog.
My husband and I both prefer different temperatures. He likes to have his side of the bed a little bit warmer, and I like to have mine a little bit cooler, and we are finally sleeping better together.
After sleeping on a dual temp layer, I find that I have such a restful night's sleep that when I wake up in the morning, I am energized and I'm ready for the day.
All night long, you can each enjoy sleep at a temperature that perfectly matches what your body needs for comfortable sleep, so you can sleep better together. In a research study, 75% reported poor sleep because of their sleeping temperature. That's because your body's temperature naturally fluctuates at night. But with the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer, you can sleep comfortably warm or cool. And because the revolutionary Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer helps solve an important sleep problem, it was selected as a very innovative product by Good Housekeeping. Remember, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer can be added to any mattress brand, so everyone can enjoy sleeping better at the perfect temperature. Call or click now.
Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now for a free $50 savings card and catalog with price list. For your peace of mind, the Sleep Number Dual Temp Layer comes with a 100-night in-home trial. Call 1-800-317-5283 or click now. That's 1-800-317-5283 for your free $50 savings card and catalog.
Tonight we are a country awakened to danger and called to defend freedom.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
How about Alan Treaster? Alan Treaster works at Disney. He is the one who had, and admitted to us, had sex with a 15-year-old boy that he met in Thomasville, Georgia. He told our detectives that his real goal, his fantasy, was to have sex with a 14-year-old boy, because you see, he'd already had sex with a 15-year-old boy. So he was working down to younger children. We see this person as very dangerous.
Things are not all jolly and smiles around the Magic Kingdom and SeaWorld and Universal Studios, thanks to a recent police action in Orlando, Florida, that swept in a number of pedophiles found working in these theme parks. And while the parks counter, it's a small number based on their total employment. One pedophile is one too many when it comes to working in close contact with children. Let's dig in as we welcome back to MidPoint. Sex crimes prosecutor Wendy Patrick brings her legal expertise to the dance. Wendy, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Wendy, first of all, let me start by playing a soundbite here. This again is going to be the Polk County Sheriff here talking about an individual named Alan Treaster here. And I want you to hear this. This is one of the individuals that they've arrested in this sting. Okay, I'm told we don't have it, so we will point out that he was one of the individuals arrested there. 16 people in Operation Cyber Child 3, an undercover sting focusing on adults traveling to meet minors for sex. This is an explosive item, though, if you think about it, from the theme park concept, because while they will only say it is a small percentage of people that are there, this would seem to indicate to people you have pedophiles that are targeting jobs where they know they can come into close contact with kids.
That's absolutely right. You know, this is not the e-ticket ride that Disney wants to be on right now in terms of publicity. You know, it's the happiest place in the world. You don't want to hear that sexual predators work there. However, Disney is correct that it is probably just a very small percentage of its employees. And another thing is it's not just Disneyland. It's not just theme parks. There are pedophiles that work in all kinds of professions. It's true that they can target professions where they're likely to be in close contact with kids. And that's especially true here when you're talking about a theme park with characters, as Disney has, whose job it is to interact with children. So this is a dream come true for a pedophile. It's a dream place to work. And that's one of the other reasons I think where it's getting the press that it deserves, is it's a very dangerous situation. Thankfully, we're now doing something to address it.
It is not just Disney. We want to make sure to point that out. It is SeaWorld in Orlando. It is Universal Studios in Orlando. There are possibly even some of the smaller theme parks are out there. But what can they do? Because the theme parks themselves will say, we do as much screening as we can. We try to find the right people here. So what can they do now, the next step, to filter through this? Because, I say this very frankly, child predators are very smart when it comes to trying to get to where they want to go.
Oh, they sure are. Not only are they very smart, but they're very strategic. They're manipulative. They really think things through in order to make sure that they can maximize the time they spend with kids. So what can theme parks do? Obviously, I think this is a big wake-up call, and I know sadly we have a wake-up call like this every so often, to look at who they're hiring. You know, it's probably not enough to just look at resumes. It's probably worth, you know, actually following up on some of the listed references. But it's also a matter of supervising the people that already work there. So you can bet that supervisors are going to really be taking steps to make sure employers monitor their employees on a regular basis. Because while this sting operation really targeted what people were doing off their shifts, you've got to believe that somebody doesn't leave their desires at the door when they come to work. And that's why this is so scary. Sure, they were soliciting over the internet, but what's to say that they're not going to be doing the same thing when they're actually at the park? So increased supervision and an increased screening procedure in place as they're hiring.
You know, this also, I believe, really speaks to the parents, too, the guardians of the kids. And I'm going to take this now to New York City and Times Square, where you have a tremendous amount of performers who are there, and they are wearing the costumes that kids would normally be attracted to. I was up in New York City recently. I saw them wearing costumes which are badly put together. They weren't even original. The Minions from Despicable Me. Kids want to have their pictures taken with them. You have no idea who is in those costumes. They're there. They could be anybody, and people are basically allowing their children to get close to them, and they've already had some instances there where the kids have been touched and fondled by these people. You've got to be on your guard every single second and know what you're dealing with and potentially who you're dealing with, correct?
You know, that's such a good point. It's, you know, we've seen the line to sit on Santa's lap at the mall dwindle over the last couple of years for the exact reasons that you point out. Parents are wising up. They are hearing these news reports. They're spreading easier with the advent of social media. And parents are really deciding not to take the chance on something that could affect their child in the long run. You know, children don't know what is and isn't proper. They may be afraid to admit what's happened because they're always afraid that they're going to be at fault. It's one of the reasons we often don't hear about these incidents for years after they occur. It's also one of the reasons that child molestation is one of the most insidious crimes that is in existence because of delayed reporting. It is so severely underreported that you talk about who do we catch in sting operations. Those are the ones that are really proactively pursuing sex with minors. Who knows how many other people work at any workplace, not necessarily just theme parks, that we don't catch.
I have about a minute or so left here. Let me ask you this. U.S. Representative Dennis Ross, a Republican out of Florida, is proposing legislation that would amend the Polygraph Act of 1988. This follows what we have seen here in the sex predator investigation in Orlando. According to the amendment, it would give businesses that, quote-unquote, cater to children the ability to use polygraph as a pre-employment screening tool. But then again, polygraphs aren't admissible in a court of law, so can an employee simply say, you can't hold that against me because it's not admissible in a court of law and it's not accurate all the time?
Both those things are true. However, there are lots of agencies that use polygraph testing for a variety of reasons, some of which you're pointing out now is to see whether or not somebody has certain proclivities, certain desires, certain types of really risks that the company doesn't want to assume. You might have heard the saying we say in the business, I never met a pedophile I didn't like. What that means is they're likable people. That's why they get hired. So any amount of screening that we can use to keep them away from kids, I think is a very good thing.
It's a shame because you have a lot of people who love kids, who like to be around kids, they're just friendly with them, but unfortunately you have to take everything into account here, and you've just got to be careful because thanks to the cretins like this that we have in the world right now who really kind of ruin it for everybody, no matter how you slice it. Wendy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Guaranteed we will see you again real soon.
Thank you.
All right, it's something that needs to be pointed out again. The theme parks, it is not just Disney, it is Universal, it is SeaWorld, it is all these theme parks. They are doing what they can. It is something that needs to be looked at. I'm going to say it one more time. It doesn't make a difference how many times I say it. One pedophile close to a kid is one too many. That's a simple fact of what we're going through here right now. Coming up next, we dance our way to New York City in the Steve Malzberg Show as MidPoint continues.
Hi, I'm Jean, and this is my one and only Henry. We just love scouring flea markets for special treasures. But with my type 2 diabetes, we now spend all the time at the pharmacy. With Medcare, I don't have to. They deliver everything I need right to my door with free shipping. Plus, Medcare takes private policies, Medicaid, even my Medicare. Sleep apnea machines, nebulizers. Medcare has all the finest medical supplies. The best part, Medcare saves us money. Medcare allows us the time to do the things we love. Medcare, we deliver a better life.
Meet Mary. She loves to shop online with her debit card. And so does Bill, an identity thief who stole Mary's identity, took over her bank accounts, and stole her hard-earned money. Unfortunately, millions of Americans just like you learn all it may take is a little misplaced information to wreak havoc on your life. This is identity theft, and no one helps stop it better than LifeLock. LifeLock offers the most comprehensive identity theft protection available. If Mary had LifeLock's bank account alerts, she may have been notified before it was too late. LifeLock's credit notification service is on the job 24/7. As soon as they detect a threat to your identity within their network, they will alert you, protecting you before the damage is done. LifeLock has the most comprehensive identity theft protection available, guarding your social security number, your money, your credit, even the equity in your home.
My years as a prosecutor taught me that we all need to protect ourselves from crime. In today's world, that includes identity theft. It's a serious problem. We all have to protect ourselves.
While identity theft can't be completely stopped, no one works harder to protect you than LifeLock. You even get a $1 million service guarantee. That's security no one can beat. You have so much to protect and nothing to lose. When you call LifeLock right now and get 60 days of identity theft protection risk-free. That's right, 60 days risk-free. Use promo code NOTME. Order now and get this document shredder to keep sensitive documents out of the wrong hands. A $29 value, free. Don't wait until you become the next victim. Call 1-800-918-3128 for 60 days of LifeLock identity theft protection risk-free and get a document shredder free. Use promo code NOTME. Call 1-800-918-3128 now.
Are you a man over 40 and feeling tired, losing muscle, have less romantic drive? Then call now for the Ageless Male free testosterone giveaway. Every man who calls in the next few minutes will receive a free 30-day supply of Ageless Male. Ageless Male has ingredients clinically shown to increase free testosterone levels, and that supports muscle health, boosts romantic drive, and supports energy metabolism. Your free 30-day supply is waiting for you.
We're the stronger than we look type. The braver than you think type. The type that's sure the time will come when we put type 1 behind us. We're the progress is inevitable type. The rise to every challenge type. type that knows bit by bit the future is certain to get better. We're the plan for a cure type. The improve life along the way type. The type that will stop at nothing. Absolutely nothing. Until type 1 becomes type none.
Welcome back to MidPoint, everybody. We're about ready to head to New York City. Steve Malzberg, getting ready for the Steve Malzberg Show right now. And while we have been talking about it, I know that they're going to talk about it as well. So let's bring Steve in here. The crash of the Malaysian 777, 295 people on board. Steve, you look at what happened here. We're seeing some of the pictures now from the Ukraine, and automatically you start thinking of what's happening between the Russians, the Ukrainians, missiles that are going down. There's all sorts of speculation going crazy here right now.
Yeah, well, we're going to have on right off the bat Liz Cheney, who, of course, Dick Cheney's daughter, also served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of State, and also Peter Brooks, who was a former CIA agent, now National Security Affairs for the Heritage Foundation, and Pete Hoekstra, former chair of the Intelligence Committee, all talking about the downed jet. You know, this jet was, if it was hit by a missile, it was hit at 33,000 feet. So that's some missile shot. Now, Ukraine spokespeople have said that they believe that it was a Russian rocket may have downed the plane. Could have been Russian separatists. They don't know. They're speculating. And we have reports that while Putin was on the phone talking to Obama about the sanctions, he informed Obama about the plane. Now, Obama spoke today at an event and managed 30 seconds on the plane and said we have something to the effect of we have what could turn out to be a great tragedy. I don't know what that means. I mean, it's already a great tragedy or worse. So maybe he knows. Maybe Putin told him something. Maybe Putin said somebody did it accidentally. I'm just speculating, trying to read into what Obama meant by that in his all of 30 seconds that he commented on it.
Hey, one of the interesting things, we had a guest on earlier today, Brigham McCown, who was with United States Transportation. He has been in the administrations before. He is also a former military pilot, and we talked to him specifically about this. And what you brought up is part of the discussion here. A plane that is at 33,000 feet, you would need a very specific and a very special type of missile that would be able to hit that plane. And what he was, again, surmising that the missiles that are already on the ground that the Ukrainians have, that the Russians have, are not those kind of missiles that would be able to go 33,000 feet, maybe several thousand feet. So we still have to leave it all open here. There's a monster vacuum here that, of course, happens in any story like this. And, of course, you would only hope that people from our own NTSB might get a chance to go over there because they're the best investigators in the world. But we'll wait and see what kind of initial thoughts they have. But you've just got to kind of pull back a little bit and wait and see what happens. But I don't think anybody would be surprised at all if somebody went rogue and did something stupid.
Well, also, you had one pilot who's an expert for CNN saying that based on the video he has seen, if it was hit by a missile, you wouldn't see one kind of main wreckage. You know, right. you would have seen a lot of falling debris. So he has doubt. He's cast doubt on the missile theory. You know, there's also what we need to also speculate on here is because the State Department won't confirm it, but the Russians are saying that on the manifest there were about 22 Americans. So we have yet to find out if that's accurate or true. But as the show progresses over the course of the next 3 hours, hopefully we'll find out a lot more.
You know, the one thing that we are hearing, a advisor to the Ukrainian Interior Ministry is the one who is saying that the plane was shot down by terrorists, again, using his words, operating a surface-to-air missile system. So you have all these rampant speculations, but you certainly have a couple of people on the show today who are going to be able to bring a little bit more realism to it. But and again, Malaysian Airlines, I don't even want to go there. I mean, if we start, there's a certain alphabet network that will start putting 2 and 2 together, and they'll come out with 37 here any second now. You know, they'll.
It's stunning. It is stunning that two huge major passenger commercial airliners from the same company could be involved in such close proximity in these two instances. It's just incredible.
All right, well, here we go. We're going to learn a whole lot more here in the next 3 hours. Steve Malzberg, the show from New York, the Steve Malzberg Show. Thank you, sir. Have a marvelous show. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Ed.
All right, we'll follow this story all day long. Again, remember, there's a whole lot here. Wait until the facts come out. That's what we will do. We will bring them to you on a regular basis. Rock on, true believers. Thanks so much for joining us. Hey, don't forget, Dick Morris joined Steve at 4:30 today as part of the Road to the White House. We are back tomorrow on a perfect Friday right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.